Chapter 3886. The Situation in the Ancient Dragon Wasteland. What is the 100 Alliance? What are the 10 Overlords? A curious voice immediately came. After all, they were late by 3 months, so there were many things they did not understand. The 100 Great Alliance is the strongest 100 alliances in the Ancient Dragon Wasteland. The other smaller alliances have all been absorbed by them. The 100 Great Alliance is the leader, and within the 100 Great Alliance, the 10 Overlords are the strongest. That person said word by word. The 10 Overlords are like the 10 tallest mountains, dominating the God's shop. Other than the trial of gods, no one dares to provoke them. If you meet them outside the God's shop, then not only will all your gains be robbed, you will even be swallowed, and then join their alliance. If you refuse, then you will die. The 10 Overlords are so powerful, but do they have the strength? No strength. What a joke. The person who spoke swept his gaze across the crowd. Seeing everyone's serious expression, his mouth raised into a contemptuous smile. The 10 Overlords are the Heaven Alliance. The Heaven Alliance is currently the strongest among the 10 Overlords. It is the combination of the Duan Alliance and the Heaven-Seeking Alliance. Hearing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Miao Continent's #1 family and the new Heavenly Court's elite alliance? No wonder they are so powerful. In the crowd, Lin Ling also frowned. He never thought that these two enemies would actually form an alliance. If he, Lin Ling, encountered them, then the trouble would not be small. The second is the Immortal Devil Alliance. This is the alliance of the 9 continents' 10 ferocious immortal temple and the Great Devil Sect. That person spoke again. 9 continents 10 ferocious. Everyone's expression changed again. Although they already knew that they would encounter the 9 continents 10 ferocious, they did not expect these two ancient beasts to form an alliance. Immortal Temple. Lin Ling suddenly became excited. Sure enough, the Immortal Temple was here. The third is the Death Alliance, the land of eternal slumber of heroic spirits. The most important thing is that the first leader came out this time. Therefore, although the land of eternal slumber of heroic spirits did not form an alliance with the other alliance, the first leader came out personally. One had to know that although the other alliances were powerful, the strongest experts of their respective forces had not come. For example, the Duan Clan Alliance, their Duan lineage martial god had not come. If the land of eternal slumber wanted to go against the Duan Clan's alliance, they would definitely need to send out their leader. It seems that these alliances are at odds with each other, which is to my advantage. Lin Ling said secretly. Since Wanyan Bupo was killed by him, the place where the heroic spirit rested would definitely seek him for revenge. Furthermore, the Duan clan was also eyeing him covetously. Fortunately, these people were not on the same side, and they were also opponents. And this was beneficial to Lin Ling. The fourth is the Creation Alliance. Speaking of which, this alliance is very mysterious. Currently, no one knows what kind of power created it, but all the people who encountered this alliance were killed. The fifth is the Alliance of True Disciples. According to legend, it is an alliance formed by the true disciples of Miao God and the Miao God dynasty. And these are all famous alliances, formed by old monsters, seniors, and others. That person spoke without stopping. Everyone was digesting his words, and their hearts became more and more solemn. It seemed that the opening of the God shop had indeed attracted the strongest forces in the 9 regions. However, the 10 Overlords are not only old monsters and seniors. In fact, in the ancient Dragon Wasteland, there are even more experts from the 36 academies, so there are 5 new Overlords. That person quietly waited for a moment, and when the newcomers had digested most of the information, he spoke lightly. These 5 new Overlords are all from the younger generation. The first is the 7th Emperor Alliance. This alliance only recruits people of the Emperor's generation. There are many experts, and the Emperor's aura surges to the sky. Unless you are a subordinate of an Emperor, you are not qualified to join. The second is the Fengyun Tower. This is also an extremely powerful alliance. It is said that currently, they have gathered more than 30,000 experts. Hearing this, someone immediately shouted, 30,000, that's too exaggerated. It's not exaggerated. Moreover, 30,000 experts, none of them are weak. The weak will be eliminated. The third is the Freedom Sword Alliance. The masters of this alliance are the 10 martial gods. Because the mine is very close to here, the alliance is very powerful. The fourth is the Northern Dragon Ice Alliance. This is an extremely mysterious alliance. It is said that there are many beauties inside. Of course, there are many beauties, but their strength is also very strong. The fifth is the Tiandi Alliance. This is an extremely mysterious alliance. The overall strength, the strength of the leader, is currently a mystery. A soft voice like the wind floated out. The surrounding mountains were very quiet. The people of each alliance were digesting this information. After all, they are the newcomers. Unless their strength is heaven-defying, they still have to follow the rules of the ancient dragon wasteland. And these 10 overlords are the kings of the 100 Alliance. However, in the next 3 months, it is said that many people will come. The number of people will probably reach 1 million, and all of them are experts. Therefore, the 100 Alliance will only become stronger and stronger. The position of the 10 overlords will never be surpassed. To be honest, I said so much because I am a member of the Fengyun Tower. This time, I am also recruiting you. That person finally said his purpose. It turned out that he wanted to represent the Fengyun Tower to swallow these newcomers' alliances. Upon seeing this, everyone frowned slightly. I know that you are all experts and proud and do not want to be under others. However, I also want to tell you that this is the general trend. A small alliance is not possible because a small alliance cannot challenge the 100 Alliance. If you want to survive, you have to join. Since you want to join the 100 Alliance, why not join the Fengyun Tower? We are after all one of the 10 overlords. This is my advice to you. Of course, whether you want to join or not is up to you. However, there is only one chance. Don't miss it. That person had his hands behind his back, showing his strength. He is a half-step martial god expert. I'll join. I'll join too. However, many people spoke up. They all came from the final world and knew the rules there. Unless you have absolute strength, if you have a strong background or connections, then the pressure to survive will be greatly reduced. Of course, there were also many people who remained silent. These people were more cautious and planned to make a decision after they understood everything. Moreover, there were some confident people among these people. They did not plan to join any alliance. Fengyun Tower, Skyfire, are you bewitching the newcomers again? For the past 3 months, Fengyun Tower has been madly recruiting newcomers. Are you relying on this kind of brainwashing method? However, at that moment, a mocking laugh suddenly came from afar. Then, a large number of young men in dragon robes appeared on a mountain peak. Imperial chi surged as if they were the emperor. This was the 7th Imperial Alliance. Looking at those experts, the man named Skyfire frowned and became silent. He seemed to be somewhat fearful. However, he did not dare to speak. This did not mean that the Fengyun Tower he was in did not dare to speak. Chapter 3887. God's Store. 7th Emperor Alliance. Scram. Stop acting all high and mighty. You're just a bunch of country bumpkins. A bunch of trash that only knows how to talk and not do anything. These people were obviously the leaders of Fengyun Tower. They were not afraid of the 7th Emperor Alliance. Haha, do you think Fengyun Tower only knows how to use such despicable methods? Gathering people from all the academies and then doing things for you. The golden fleece flower is so pitiful. Do you really think others are idiots? However, if you continue to be unjust, you will be doomed. Just wait, when this matter is exposed, your alliance will automatically collapse. A young man from the 7th Emperor Alliance said calmly. 9 dragons of different colors were circling around him. Most importantly, this person was a martial god expert. With such strength, he could be ranked in the top 200 on the heavenly stairway. Haha, just wait and see. The experts from Fengyun Tower didn't care about the 7th Emperor Alliance's warning. In fact, they were very angry, but they suppressed it because they noticed that another monstrous overlord had appeared on the other side. They didn't want to be the bystander and reap the spoils later. That was why they remained silent. And that was the Northern Dragon Ice Kingdom Alliance. In addition, the Unrestrained Sword Alliance had also appeared. Compared to Fengyun Tower, these 2 alliances would also devour other smaller alliances. However, they would only accept the elites. On the other hand, Fengyun Tower devoured both the strong and the weak. This was the difference. Fengyun Tower had the worst reputation among the 100 alliances. There were even rumors that if this continued, the 100 alliances would be eliminated and devoured. In the end, only the 10 overlords would be left. Outside of the Tiandi League, the other 4 overlords have appeared. It seems like they are all going against each other. In the crowd, Tian Ao saw these experts fighting and couldn't help but say in a serious tone, "Haha, if the sky falls down, these tall people will block it. We should just keep quiet and make a fortune." Lin Ling didn't care and smiled. There are many experts in the ancient dragon desolate ground. Small alliances like us won't be a thorn in their side. Thus, the more powerful alliances appear, the better. Lin Ling is right. When those great gods fight, us mortals should focus on increasing our strength. Chen Ting immediately agreed. However, there were quite a few people who had the same thoughts as Lin Ling and the others. Many people's eyes were burning with desire. On the surface, they were led by the 10 overlords, but in reality, if they had the chance to exchange for treasures from the Shop of Gods, they could also soar into the sky. After all, the 100 Realms Alliance had entered 3 months earlier than them. They had an innate advantage. It was not the right time for them to fight head-on. Ancient Dragon Wasteland, 20,000 people came in the first month, 50,000 people came in the second month, 80,000 people came in the third month. I'm afraid there will be around 150,000 people this month, and in the following days, there will be even more people. At this moment, an aged voice suddenly resounded, causing the surrounding mountains to go silent. All the overlords were silent. In the distant tower, the clouds finally dispersed, revealing a huge palace. The palace was mysterious and had no doors or windows, only a huge platform. And on the platform, a white-haired old man stood there with a smile, his eyes looking at the dense crowd. When they saw the old man, everyone's face turned serious. Especially those from the 100 Realms Alliance. They clearly knew that this person was the 10th grade divine paladin, one of the 4 great gods, the Kurishin. He was also the caretaker of the Shop of Gods. All the treasures were exchanged through that person. As for the palace behind the old man, it should be the Shop of Gods. However, although there were countless treasures in the palace, it was obvious that no one dared to snatch them. Everyone was doing things according to the rules. You guys have come from far away, all for the divine treasure. Now that you have come here after so many twists and turns, I'm sure you newcomers are very curious about what the Shop of Gods has. The old man smiled faintly, his voice spreading to the surrounding mountains. Everyone licked their lips and looked at the old man. Their expressions were like children waiting to be given candy. All right, I'll stop teasing you. All right, I won't tease you anymore. I'll get straight to the point. There are countless treasures in God's shop, and they are divided into 5 categories. The first category is God's inheritance treasures, which were collected by Lord Black God. They were left behind by the gods of the old gods era, and they were the treasures of their entire lives. There are 4 of them in total, and if you want to exchange for them, you need a lot of things. The old man smiled and pointed to the sky, as if an immortal was guiding the way. Suddenly, 4 big words appeared in the sky. Wind, forest, fire, mountain. These were the 4 lower gods of the old gods era. They had fallen, so their treasures were left behind. It was like a treasure house, and one only needed to exchange for the corresponding treasures. Divine treasure. Everyone trembled, and they were so excited that they almost fell to the ground. That feeling was as if those treasures belonged to them. Of course, although some of the calmer people were excited, they clearly knew that obtaining one of the 4 treasures was more difficult than ascending to the heavens. The second type is the divine embryo inheritance. There are a total of 6 of them. Those who obtain the divine embryo will surpass the ultimate desolate body, becoming a god in 1 step. As for what divine embryo they are, I can only say that they are lower god divine embryos. If you can obtain them, you will benefit greatly. The old man said again. Divine embryo inheritance? Heavens! Many people held their breaths. The limit of the ultimate desolate body was to transform into a divine embryo. Therefore, the divine embryo inheritance also represented the complete transformation from a mortal to a god. Those who had divine embryos were true gods. And 6 divine embryos meant that 6 people could become gods. The third type is the wondrous treasures. It records all kinds of rare treasures, a total of 8,432 kinds. I will not introduce them one by one. I will give you 3 incense sticks worth of time to take a look.
Light bloomed in the sky, as if flowers were sprinkling in every corner.
A large number of treasure phantoms appeared, as treasure light soared into the sky. Everyone held their breaths as they stared intently at the sky. Even Lin Ling and company were the same. They were all looking for treasures that were suitable for them. Fruit of fortune, fruit of good, fruit of fate, all of them are available. Soon, Lin Ling's body trembled. He had found the treasure he needed. There were all 3 kinds of fruits. This gave Lin Ling a shock. This shop of God was indeed rich. This also meant that his trip to the ancient dragon desolate land was not in vain. Dragon Ball? Murder clothes? Following that, Lin Ling saw a rare treasure that could increase his talent. Dragon Ball was clearly an item that could increase the dragon god's talent. As for the murder clothes? Chapter 3888. The use of the golden fleece flower. As for the great ominous person, it represented an ominous aura. Naturally, it did not fear the divine ominous clothing. The ominous clothing was suitable for increasing the talent of the realm-swallowing beast. Other than that, Lin Ling also saw many rare treasures. Some could increase one's physical strength, some could increase one's realm essence, ancestral power, and other fruits. Lin Ling also saw flowers that could increase one's dantian. Of course, one could only consume 1 flower to increase one's dantian. It was much worse than the chaos deity formula. Other than increasing one's dantian, there were also many inheritances of ultimate desolate physiques. Some had limits similar to the time and space divine steel, while others had limits that exceeded the time and space divine steel. As for the most basic treasures that could increase one's cultivation level, they were as numerous as the hairs on a cow. They were also divided into different types, such as fire, wind, and so on. You have seen enough. Now let's move on to the 4th type, the divine type.
As time passed, the old man smiled again and waved his right hand.
This time, martial arts and divine abilities appeared. These martial arts and divine abilities were all left behind from the era of gods. They were extremely powerful. Lin Ling even saw an incomplete version of the calamity-destroying Sun Bao. Furthermore, he saw the illusionary god world. It could be said that more than half of the divine abilities and martial arts that had appeared in the 9 prefectures had appeared here. There were also many martial arts and divine abilities that had never appeared in the 9 prefectures before. As for the 5th category, it was the various divine artifacts. There were acquired divine artifacts, innate divine artifacts, and some of them were even apocalyptic treasures that could kill martial gods. Of course, although these treasures were terrifying, they had corresponding side effects. Therefore, although they seemed to be powerful, they were also ranked last in the divine artifacts category. Divine inheritance treasures, divine embryos, mystical treasures, divine arts, and divine weapons. The 5 types of treasures were displayed one after another, especially the 1st and 2nd types. These were undoubtedly rare treasures that could not be bought even if one had the money. This was because these were all necessary to become a god. Everyone's eyes continued to flicker, and all of them revealed the same expression. It was a desire to possess, and it was as if they wanted to take all the treasures for themselves. Their hearts were also pounding non-stop. When he saw their expressions, the old man on the platform just smiled without saying a word. It was as if he knew what they were thinking. The elders of the Great 100 Alliance were also smiling, but they weren't mocking him. This was because they had the same expression when they first saw God's shop. This silence lasted for an entire hour. The people's excited gazes gradually calmed down. Lin Ling was the same. He clenched his fists and gradually calmed down because he knew that although the treasure was tempting, he had to be able to obtain it. Therefore, the most important thing was how to exchange for it. There is no lack of smart people among you. From your eyes, I can see that you want to know how to exchange for treasures. Then, I'll tell you, golden fleece flower, everything can be exchanged with golden fleece flower. The old man looked at the crowd mysteriously. A golden light appeared in his hand. Then, the light gradually dimmed and turned into a golden knotweed. What is this? As for the golden fleece flower, many people were obviously confused. Is it that thing? On the other hand, Lin Ling and the others' expressions changed, especially Tianao and the others. They looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. This was because Lin Ling had a golden fleece flower in his hand. This golden fleece flower was taken from Huang Lu. At that time,
They had expended all their efforts to get it. When they thought of how the Canon Gods Alliance attacked Huang Tang, the mystery in their hearts was suddenly solved. It was all because of the golden fleece flower. No wonder. Lin Ling also had a golden fleece flower in his hand. He smiled. Not long ago, he felt that this golden light was the key. Now, it seemed that it was indeed the case. Of course, other than Lin Ling, many people in the surrounding hills also had golden fleece flower. At this moment, they were looking at the treasures in their hands in shock. Hee, some of you are very careful and have already collected some golden fleece flower. This shows that you are very curious about the treasures of heaven and earth. However, I can tell you that these golden fleece flower are of no use to you. If you want, you can exchange them for treasures in God's shop. And for those who have golden fleece flower, you can immediately open God's shop. The old man's voice floated out like the wind, causing those who had golden fleece flower to smile excitedly. They had put in so much effort to get the golden fleece flower, which gave them extraordinary privileges.
Is it useless?
Compared to the others, Lin Ling did not express his opinion. This was because he faintly felt that the golden fleece flower had an effect, which was to train one's willpower. Willpower was something that martial artists could do without, but it was also something that they could not do without. Most of the time, willpower could not be easily displayed, so most martial artists did not care much about it. Moreover, Lin Ling suddenly remembered that the Kuroshin had once told him that Xiaoluan was the host of the will of the world. The will of the world was very likely to use Xiaoluan's body to revive in this world. What Xiaoluan could do was to use his willpower to resist. Could it be that all of this had happened because of Xiaoluan? Thinking of this, Lin Ling gasped. The Kuroshin was too generous. Of course, this was only Lin Ling's conjecture. Lin Ling, hand over the golden fleece flower. At this time, Chen Ting nudged Lin Ling, causing Lin Ling to react. He looked over and saw that those who had golden fleece flower had already handed over their golden fleece flower. In exchange, those people also had a jade token in their hands. Immediately, Lin Ling followed suit, causing many people to be envious. After all, they did not have golden fleece flower, so they could only watch as Lin Ling's group familiarized themselves with God's shop. And those who had a jade token in their hands immediately checked it. They immediately realized that the jade token had a blood-binding effect. It was like a Qianquan bag that could be used to store items. Moreover, it could be used to purchase items. This meant that even if they were not on the platform, they could directly exchange for treasures. However, there was a rule. They could only exchange for the last 2 treasures. The first 3 treasures had to be exchanged on the platform. In addition to this, there was another benefit. That was, the prices of the 5th type of divine weapon treasures had all appeared. Flying boots, increase speed by 500 worlds, 10 golden fleece flower. Sky treading boots, increase speed by 800 worlds, 50 golden fleece flower. Divine sky boots, increase speed by 1000 worlds, 100 golden fleece flower. Yu Wang sword, increase power by 50%, 50 golden fleece flower. Yu Wang divine sword, increase power by 80%, 100 golden fleece flower. Chapter 38-89. The Giant Ghost's Reminder. Ranked 2nd was the Curse of the Gods. It had a mysterious power and could seal a martial god. There were a total of 5 curses, and the price was 50,000 golden fleece flower. Of course, although these most expensive divine weapons were powerful, they were all consumables. However, to kill a martial god? Everyone who had a jade pendant sucked in a breath of cold air. If they had such a taboo treasure in their hands, why would the martial god fear them? However, 100,000 golden fleece flower? It was so scary. After all, they had only obtained a single golden fleece flower after battling the desolate tree and other poisonous creatures. 100,000? He didn't know how many he would have to kill. Even if he died in the mouth of the poisonous tree, he wouldn't be able to complete the task. Looking at the other treasures, the lowest starting price was 10 golden fleece flower. Expensive, too expensive. Lin Ling was also looking at the jade token. His gaze finally landed on the great heaven world destruction flag, and his breathing instantly became heavy. He had killed the martial god. He immediately thought of martial god Wen Tian. With the treasures left behind by the deities and his familiarity with Wen Tian martial god, it would not be a problem to kill him. Lin Ling's eyes lit up in an instant. He was extremely excited. He knew it was not difficult to kill Wentian martial god, but it would take some time. And he didn't want to wait that long. Therefore, if he had these treasures, he would be able to shorten the time by half. Remember, there is only one treasure. If you buy it, it's gone. So if you see something you like, buy it as soon as possible. Especially the 6 divine embryos. Haha, if you miss it, it's gone. Also, if you have a jade token, you can only see the price of the 4th divine artifact if you buy the 5th divine artifact, and only then can you see the price of the 3rd divine artifact and so on. At this moment, the old man's smiling voice drifted out once more. As soon as these words were spoken, all the people in the surrounding mountains became excited. Their eyes were filled with madness. Boom! Boom! There was a roar in his heart. They had obviously gone mad for these treasures. Go, open your path to becoming stronger. The 100 Great Alliance, after the gods, heroes will rise together. Who can stand against you? When the old man's last words drifted out, the people in the various mountain ranges began to disperse. That was because even though there seemed to be a lot of treasures, they could still be bought up. Especially treasures that one had taken a fancy to. If it was bought by someone else, then it would be gone. Therefore, people wanted to gain the upper hand by making the first move. Moreover, in order to obtain a jade plate, one must obtain the first golden fleece flower to exchange for a jade plate. This was the first step everyone had to take. They are very excited, but when they realize the danger of the wasteland, their excitement will slowly be suppressed. The powerhouses of the Great 100 Alliance smiled faintly as they watched the newcomers leave. Because the treasures were rare, the competition was fierce. Only a true dragon could rise to prominence. At this moment, Lin Ling and the others had also left the tower area and were rushing outside. What a crazy treasure! Even the giant ghost, who was beside Lin Ling, said, I actually saw the immortal fruit. According to legend, those who have this fruit will not die even when they are at the martial god realm. They will not die even once. Hearing this, Lin Ling's eyes burned with passion, but he calmed down and said, There are many treasures and they are all very rare. However, if we want to obtain them, we will need more golden fleece flower. Currently, it seems that it will be difficult for us to obtain even one golden fleece flower, let alone hundreds or thousands. Lin Ling could not help but think of the desolate willow. That monster was at the martial god realm and it was killed in the process of refining it. What if they wanted to kill the desolate willow in their prime? It would be difficult. Moreover, the golden fleece flower was rare. Therefore, if the other alliances encountered the desolate willow, they would not miss it. If you don't kill it, they will. It would be like robbing a treasure. Lin Ling, this golden fleece flower is unique to the Kaiyuan River. According to legend, it is also one of the world wills. However, this is only the world will of the Kaiyuan River, and it is produced continuously. The golden fleece flower that you encountered before was devoured by the monster. In fact, there are many golden fleece flower that have not been discovered by the monster. At this time, the giant ghost spoke again. Lin Ling's eyes narrowed. The giant ghost seems to be very familiar with the golden fleece flower. Giant ghost, do you know where those golden fleece flower are? Lin Ling stopped and asked excitedly. This also made Tianao and the others curious, but they did not stop Lin Ling. The giant ghost used a voice that only Lin Ling could hear and said faintly, I can only find the general direction, and this is only a general direction. However, if your evil ghost jellyfish enters the ground, in addition to the small Kunlun, then the search for the golden fleece flower will be clearer. This can also work. Lin Ling was stunned. He did not think of this method. Moreover, if this method could work, then why didn't the others use it? The underground of the ancient dragon desolate land is extremely ancient. It can also block many detection methods. Even for those experts who are proficient in water and earth element, their methods would be like stones sinking into the sea after entering the ground. The reason is that this desolate land can only allow the monster tree to grow. However, the small Kunlun is also a tree. Therefore, it is not afraid of the law of the ground. The giant ghost said. Lin Ling immediately looked at the small Kunlun. The small Kunlun's consciousness followed Lin Ling's arm and swam towards the ground. It looked like a desolate vine. Moreover, it swam deeper and deeper, like a fish in water. Seeing this, Tianao and the others were stunned. What was Lin Ling doing? Suddenly releasing a plant and then standing there like a fool? This Lin Ling. We have not obtained a jade token. We must immediately obtain a golden fleece flower to exchange for a jade token. Do you think we should hurry? Chen Ting whispered. Boom. However, just as she finished speaking, the soil on the ground began to churn. A black vine was growing. When it reached the height of a human, the leaves on the vine shone with golden light. When the leaves opened, a golden fleece flower the size of a small stone appeared. Damn! Isn't that the golden fleece flower? What's going on? What the hell is this vine? Tianao and the others were stunned. Then they were overjoyed. This was because they did not expect Lin Ling to find the golden fleece flower so quickly. There were many people who were passing by. When they saw this, they were jealous and almost wanted to snatch it. However, after hesitating for a while, they quickly left. Perhaps they thought that since Lin Ling and the others could find the golden fleece flower so easily, there should be many outside. However, only the people from the Great Hundred Alliance knew that there were many golden fleece flower outside. However, the prerequisite was that you could find it and obtain it. Compared to Tianao and the others who were overjoyed, Lin Ling was almost going crazy. This was because when the small kunlun entered the ground, it began to take root and germinate. It began to produce branches and leaves. Everything within a radius of 1,000 miles was under its control. This meant that if there were many golden fleece flower underground, the small kunlun could immediately find it and dig it out. If it went to a place where there were many golden fleece flower, wouldn't it be easy to obtain the golden fleece flower? Boom. Boom. Chapter 3890. This was shocking news. Treasure. He would be able to buy all the treasures he wanted. Let's go, let's get out of here. Lin Ling's eyes were red as he hurriedly led everyone away. At this moment, everyone's jaws dropped. They were surprised that Lin Ling was so excited, but they quickly followed after Lin Ling. On the ancient wasteland, Lin Ling sprinted all the way as if he had gone mad. Beside him was the giant ghost, and behind him was the golden white evil ghost. Wherever they passed, the passers-by were stunned, and then many people from the Great Hundred Alliance laughed mockingly. Hee hee, this must be a newbie. Do you think that golden fleece flower is everywhere? He's treating the golden fleece flower as a radish. In a while, he will know what a golden fleece flower is. When he walks out of the wasteland, he won't even see a single hair of the golden fleece flower, let alone a golden fleece flower. It's not easy to find one, but it was refined by those poisonous creatures. Don't bother about him. A newbie is a newbie. He doesn't know any better. Those people said disdainfully and headed in another direction. And beside them, Tianao and the others also quickly passed by. After hearing those words, their faces turned ugly. In fact, they already knew that the golden fleece flower was not easy to get. They didn't need those people to tell them what to do. But what surprised them was why Lin Ling was so excited. No, it shouldn't be that he was excited, but that he had gone mad, as if he had seen an endless amount of treasure. Lin Ling, haven't you always been very calm? Chen Ting blinked and asked. Chen Wu instantly shook his head helplessly. Perhaps Lin Ling was bewildered by those treasures as well. Alas, even though the treasures are tempting, what's the point of being unable to obtain them? Stop talking nonsense, hurry up and follow Lin Ling. Tianao and the rest said as they ran. They had been running for 6 hours. If it wasn't for the fact that Lin Ling's route was not dangerous, they would have given up halfway. Not long after, the group arrived at a red earth ruin. Looking around, it could be said that this was a desolate place. Not to mention plants, there were not even many rocks. Moreover, the ground was hard, comparable to a salt pan. This. Chen Ting and the others were speechless. Lin Ling had been running like crazy, and then came to this place? No matter how he looked at it, there didn't seem to be any golden fleece flower here. At this moment, Lin Ling looked at everyone with a smile. That smile made everyone's hair stand on end. They almost thought that Lin Ling had gone crazy. After all, how could Lin Ling smile in such a stingy place? Do you guys think I'm crazy? As if he knew what everyone was thinking, Lin Ling looked at them with a smile. However, this smile made Tianao and the others think that Lin Ling was crazy. In the end, Wu Jiang nodded. They don't dare to say it, so I'll say it. I really think so. After all, even though the god store is rare, It requires the golden fleece flower to exchange for it. Moreover, the golden fleece flower is extremely difficult to obtain. Leader, you should have seen it for yourself. In the end, he still didn't dare to challenge Lin Ling's position too much, so he also called him leader in the end. Of course, his words also represented everyone's thoughts. Everyone looked at Lin Ling eagerly. Lin Ling shrugged and said calmly, "The reason why I'm so excited is because I've already found more than 100 golden fleece flower. Moreover, they're right under our feet." The giant ghost knew the general direction of the golden fleece flower, and Lil Kunlun could find the exact location. Therefore, Lin Ling was extremely confident.
What? More than 100? Leader, you're not joking, right?
Yeah. We were almost swallowed by the wild willow for a golden fleece flower. Now, you're saying that there are more than 100?
Big brother, tell me, is this a lie? Everyone said at the same time.
Their eyes were burning, and smoke was coming out of their nostrils. That was because they couldn't ignore the god's store. They just didn't have the confidence to obtain the treasures inside. However, Lin Ling said that he could obtain more than 100 golden fleece flower?
How could they not be tempted?
Immediately, Lin Ling didn't hide anything. He roughly explained Lil Kunlun's abilities. The more he spoke, the faster Tianao and the rest's hearts beat. That was because they knew that the wasteland's underground was very mysterious. It was as if it was a world of its own. Only those poisonous creatures could survive here. That was why those poisonous creatures were extremely powerful. However, Lin Ling's vines could also work.
Lin Ling, are you sure?
Tianao's eyes were bloodshot, and his body was trembling.
Lin Ling, don't lie to me. Don't give me hope and then kill it.
Chen Ting and her sister were also shouting in shock. Looking at their faces, they were all going crazy. They were as excited as Lin Ling was previously. In fact, they were even more excited than him.
Lil Kunlun, it's up to you.
Lin Ling nodded at everyone. The vines on his left arm extended out and then entered the ground. The wasteland didn't seem to hinder the growth of plants. After Lil Kunlun entered the ground, it immediately grew up crazily. Those roots and vines were like a spider web, spreading in all directions. Moreover, they went deeper and deeper, as if they were about to break through the limits of the wasteland.
Tianao and the rest looked at Lin Ling anxiously.
At the same time, they were on high alert so that no one would disturb Lin Ling.
Evil ghost jellyfish, go.
Lin Ling immediately summoned the evil ghost jellyfish. Instantly, the jellyfish followed the vines and started to search in all directions. 1 golden fleece flower.
2, 3.
Lin Ling's eyes became brighter and brighter. The corners of his mouth curled up into an excited smile.
There's a chance. Look at the smile on our leader's face.
There must be a chance. Looking at Lin Ling's expression, everyone felt as if they were struck by lightning. Zhuang Yanming was even drooling. If it weren't for the fact that they had to be on high alert, they would have held hands and danced. After a while, Lin Ling finally raised his head and looked at everyone solemnly. Leader, how many are there? Everyone looked at Lin Ling. 323. Lin Ling said in a low voice.
Fuck. Tianao roared angrily.
So many. Chen Ting and her brother's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Their jaws almost hit the ground. We're rich. We're going to be rich. Luo Wuchang circled around Lin Ling excitedly. The corners of his mouth were trembling. 320.
How many treasures could they buy with that?
Indeed, we're going to be rich. This is only a small part of the golden fleece flower in the wasteland. There are countless golden fleece flower in the entire wasteland. If we collect all of them, we might even be able to buy the god's legacy treasure. Lin Ling's eyes were bloodshot. He was obviously very excited.
You guys stay here and guard this place.
I'll ask the evil ghost jellyfish and Lil Kunlun to bring all the golden fleece flower here. Lin Ling instructed solemnly.
All right, Lin Ling, go ahead.
Even if the god comes, I'll block him for you.
Tianao roared immediately.
Chen Ting, who was beside him, kicked him.
Why are you shouting so loudly? Aren't you afraid that others will hear you?
Then, everyone dispersed and looked around vigilantly.
Chapter 3891.
Dig, dig, dig. Lin Ling controlled the evil ghost jellyfish and swam along the vines. When it found a golden fleece flower, it immediately absorbed it. Then, with little Kunlun's help, it continuously brought the golden fleece flowers up. 1, 2, 10, 100. Lin Ling could sense the increasing number of golden fleece flowers. He licked his lips excitedly. Of course, these golden fleece flowers were hidden very well. Therefore, even if they knew the location, it would take a lot of time to dig them up. Little Kunlun alone couldn't do this. Its roots could only sense the location of the golden fleece flowers, but it couldn't dig them up. That was because little Kunlun couldn't take care of everything. Therefore, Lin Ling's soul power came into play. He let the evil ghost jellyfish collect them. Looks like it's not easy to dig up the golden fleece flowers. Chen Ting and the rest were on guard. When they sensed that time had passed, they started to speak. Of course, because even the demonic trees here can only devour one golden fleece flower. Moreover, the ground of this barren land is very hard. I'm afraid it's even harder underground. Finding a golden fleece flower is like finding a needle in a haystack. Even Lin Ling has to spend so much time. What about the people from the other alliances? No wonder the alliances are fighting each other. It's impossible to gather the golden fleece flowers alone. Most importantly, they can only fight the demonic trees and other things. In the end, they only get one golden fleece flower. What we are gathering are the golden fleece flowers that even the demonic trees can't find. Talking about this makes me happy. Moreover, even if the alliances have the means to find the golden fleece flowers, they can't grow as fast as little Kunlun. The more Qianao and the rest chatted, the happier they were. Rumble. After a long time, the ground trembled slightly. Then, little Kunlun appeared on Lin Ling's shoulder. Lin Ling looked at little Kunlun gratefully. Little guy, it's been hard on you. Don't worry, I'll buy the treasures you need for you. Hearing this, little Kunlun immediately shook its head happily and told Lin Ling that it didn't need any treasures. It only needed the 10,000 spirits water. Lin Ling immediately patted its buds. Of course, he wouldn't just give it the 10,000 spirit water. If he had enough golden fleece flower, he would also let little Kunlun transform again. But now, little Kunlun had been tempered by the myriad spirit water. Its regenerative ability and vitality had become even stronger. Even if the entire vine forest was destroyed, the main sapling would be fine. Everything could be restored. Lin Ling, how much have you found? At this moment, Xianxia and the rest all ran over, their faces full of anticipation. There are number 323 trees. Seeing their excited looks, Lin Ling also smiled. His words made Xianxia and the others stunned. Could it be that there was a mistake midway? It's 357. That's more than a dozen. Lin Ling's smile didn't change. Then, he took out the blood-binding jade token and flung it lightly. Golden light shone resplendently, and precious light rushed into the heavens. The ground was covered with golden fleece flowers. Wow, we're rich! Xianxia and the rest stared at the golden fleece flowers in front of them. Then they all shouted. Zhuang Yanming even fell to his knees in an exaggerated manner. Take your share. Lin Ling also looked at them excitedly and said. Lin Ling, we're just in charge of guarding. You're the one who's digging. How about this? You take the biggest share, and we only take 1/5. How about that? At this moment, Xianxia calmed down and suggested, of course if you think it's too much, we can take 1/10 as well. 1/10. So far, there were 3 golden fleece flowers. Moreover, it had only been a few hours. Therefore, this was a profit for them. After all, other people might not be able to find even one golden fleece flower in a day, unless it was those big alliances. That's right. The rest immediately nodded their heads. Without Lin Ling, they wouldn't have been able to get a single golden fleece flower. This was something they knew very well. This won't do. After all, you're part of the God Slayer Alliance. I'm never stingy with my own people. How about this? You take 1/3. How about that? Lin Ling immediately shook his head. This was because he knew that digging for golden fleece flowers was not like digging for carrots. It would be difficult for him to do it alone. He needed everyone's help. This. Chen Ting and the rest were suddenly put in a difficult position. All right, I'm the leader. I have the final say. Moreover, Let's not dwell on this issue because we don't have much time left. In another month, there might be 1 million experts coming here. It's even possible that there might be 2 million. Therefore, we have to get as many golden fleece flowers as possible before they arrive. Also, go and exchange for jade plates immediately. After that, we'll dig again. When we reach 500 golden fleece flowers, immediately buy the heavenly boots. That's a 3rd grade innate divine weapon. It can increase the speed of 1,000 boundaries. This way, our digging speed will be even faster. Lin Ling continued. Alright. Chen Ting and the rest followed Lin Ling's lead blindly. Following that, Lin Ling continued to move forward under the lead of the giant ghost. However, less than 10,000 miles later, the giant ghost found a large number of golden fleece flowers again. This time, there were even more of them. Ha ha ha! Lin Ling and the rest laughed loudly. This time, the golden fleece flowers were dug out. They could buy. They also wanted to arm themselves to the teeth with divine weapons. This was because they knew that they would definitely encounter enemies in the process of digging. If they were not strong enough, they would not be able to defend themselves no matter how many golden fleece flowers they had. To the east, 297 trees. 121 trees in the west. South 205. Oh my god. There are 400 in the north. Lin Ling continued to collect as he roared in his heart. This was because the harvest this time was close to 1,000 golden fleece flowers. Although it was still far from the divine weapon Great Heaven Destroyer flag, which required 100,000 golden fleece flowers, Lin Ling was only digging for the 2nd time. Moreover, this was only a small area of golden fleece flowers. What if it was a medium area or a large area? Lin Ling, I can sense a strong willpower in that direction. There should be more golden fleece flowers. Do you want to go? At this time, the giant ghost reminded him. Lin Ling immediately told them the news. At this moment, Tian Ao and the rest seemed to have fallen into the trap of money and nodded their heads. However, Chen Ting was a woman after all. She was more meticulous and said cautiously, "It doesn't seem right to go there now." Lin Ling nodded his head in approval. This was because he felt the same way. He explained, "I think there are 100 alliances in that place. If they find out that we have such power, they will definitely capture us and control us. Although we are not afraid of them, it will be a waste of time. Therefore, it is better for us to go to a small area for now. When we are stronger, we will look for a medium area or a large area." That's right. We have to take it one bite at a time. Anyway, we are growing faster than them. That is enough. Chapter 3892. Bye. Let's go. After Lin Ling exchanged for the divine heaven boots, he distributed them to everyone, greatly increasing their speed. As for Lin Ling, after obtaining this divine weapon, his speed had reached 2,000 world speed. His strength had increased by half. No wonder so many people went crazy over the god store. Increasing one's strength was as easy as drinking water. Here, 572. 456. Lin Ling and the others also specially looked for places where there were no people and dug up small areas of golden fleece flower. Then they used the jade plates on their bodies to buy. Along the way, it wasn't that no one saw Lin Ling and the others. However, when they saw that Lin Ling and the others weren't fighting with the tree demon, but were still laughing happily, their gazes immediately turned mocking. Those people must be crazy. It's very normal. Seeing a treasure right in front of your eyes, but not being able to get it, the stimulation is definitely not small. Poor guys, they're all martial progenitors, but there are only 2 half-step martial gods. With such weak strength, I'm afraid they won't even be able to touch the hair of the golden fleece flower. Maybe they'll be able to dig up a radish. Let's go, don't waste time on these ants. Let's go to the east, there's a wild grape there. As long as our alliance goes all out, we'll get a golden fleece flower. Those people laughed mischievously and swaggered over. They even shouted the last sentence very loudly. "A golden fleece flower is mine." In their eyes, Lin Ling's group couldn't even touch a single hair of the fleece flower, so they wanted to make Lin Ling's group jealous. However, Lin Ling and the others didn't care about those people at all. After those people left, they laughed even louder. A single tree? They didn't like it at all. Even Lin Ling ate the golden fleece flower to test the taste. Even little Kunlun had eaten quite a lot. Right now, without over 100 golden fleece flower, Lin Ling and the others wouldn't even look at them. They're gone. Dick. Following that, Lin Ling and the others laughed heartily. As for the Shop of God, some of the alliances that came earlier than Lin Ling had finally gathered enough golden fleece flower and went to exchange them for their own treasures. Haha, I've long had my eyes on that 4th grade innate divine weapon, the Heaven Divining Shield. But I've finally collected enough golden fleece flower. I also have a Heaven Extermination painted halberd that I've been preparing for 3 months. This innate divine weapon can unleash 90% of the ancestral power, and it's the ancestral power of the killing element. It's very suitable for me. Those people looked at the jade plates in their hands excitedly and then chose to exchange. However, they soon realized that something was wrong. What? Nothing else? Who could be so fast? Heavens! Even my heavenly extermination painted halberd has been exchanged. Those people stared blankly at the jade tokens in their hands. They were so angry that they smashed the jade tokens to the ground. This was because although there were many divine weapons, they had to be suitable for their own use. As for the expensive ones, they could not afford them. It was not easy to find a divine weapon with the highest cost-performance ratio, but it had been snatched away by someone else. My water and fire poisonous dragon drill. Who bought it? Come out. I promise I won't kill you. Brother, your treasure has been snatched away too. Yeah, I don't know who went crazy during this period. Crazily snatching divine weapons. Damn it. This kind of thing also happened in other places of the ancient dragon wasteland. Moreover, they all agreed that it was a newcomer alliance that bought it. After all, the experts of the 100 Great Alliance mostly stored golden fleece flower and used it to buy later treasures. After all, although divine weapons were powerful, they were still external objects. Having 1 or 2 of them was enough. They could not be compared to rare treasures and divine weapons. So they were curious which newcomer alliance was so rich that they were overflowing with oil. And the people who bought these treasures were Lin Ling and the others. Because they had to be armed to the teeth and dig out more golden fleece flower, increasing their strength was inevitable. They even began to complain that there were not enough people and almost used golden fleece flower to invite people. After all, Lin Ling would only dare to dig out large areas of golden fleece flower land when the alliance had more people and become stronger. Haha, a 4th grade innate divine weapon. This flying glaive is a perfect match for me. Wu Jiang bought a powerful glaive and his spirits were lifted. The others also bought the divine weapons they needed and felt a lot stronger in an instant. Even Lin Ling spent 10,000 golden fleece flower to buy a blue armor. It was a 5th grade innate divine weapon, the Azure Divine Armor. It had a strong defense and could reduce the attack of a half-step martial god by 50%. It could even stimulate all its potential and could block 3 full-strength attacks of an early-stage martial god. Its power was comparable to Wu Zhang's armor. Moreover, Lin Ling also studied the armor and was confident that he could forge it, but he would need the corresponding treasures. Apart from these 2 items, Lin Ling did not buy anything else as he needed to save money to buy the best treasures in the divine weapons category. Of course, he also reminded Xianxia and the others that although the divine weapons were convenient, they were just worldly possessions. The real treasures were the rare treasures and divine weapons. Xianxia and the others nodded in agreement. The divine weapons were indeed powerful. However, if their strength increased, the effects of the divine weapons would weaken and they would become completely useless. On the other hand, the rare treasures and divine weapons would be useful for the rest of their lives. We have dug out most of the golden fleece flower in the remote area. Next, we should go to the crowded area. Next, Lin Ling had a new plan. After all, digging up a small area of golden fleece flower, only 1 or 2,000 at a time, was too slow. In addition, it wouldn't be long before more and more people arrived here, so he had to seize the time. All right, let's go to the crowded area. Chen Ting and the others had bought treasures and their confidence was greatly boosted. Let's go this way. Just like the giant ghost, he had also bought something that he liked, so he was in high spirits. Lin Ling was speechless because the item that the giant ghost had bought was just an incense burner. It did not have any attack power and could only be used to burn incense. It was extremely strange. However, as long as the giant ghost was happy. Under the giant ghost's guidance, Lin Ling and the others rushed to the new area. There, the poisonous fog was hazy and the poisonous fog had a paralyzing effect. Unfortunately, Lin Ling and the others had bought defensive divine weapons and did not care about it at all. I remember when we first entered the ancient dragon wasteland, we could only take a detour in the face of this poisonous fog. Now, we are not afraid at all.
Chen Wu suddenly exclaimed.
Yes.
Everyone immediately looked at Lin Ling because they did not expect this day to come.
After all, they had seen others work so hard and only get one golden fleece flower.
However, they had found hundreds of them in a day. The difference was huge.
And all of this was brought about by Lin Ling.
Therefore, they were not jealous of Lin Ling for taking the biggest share.
Instead, they were grateful to Lin Ling. Everyone work harder. The wild lotus is about to die.
At this time, an excited voice came from the swamp in front.
All right.
Chapter 3893.
Humiliating. This caused the eyes of Lin Ling and the rest to light up.
Looks like there was someone harvesting the golden fleece flower up ahead.
At this moment, the giant ghost's voice stopped, pointing at a spot not far ahead. Go!
Lin Ling and the others didn't stop either. They immediately jumped down and stopped on top of a hill. Below the hill was a swamp, and a large number of experts were attacking a huge lotus flower. That lotus flower was also in a mess, and was about to explode at any time. These people had treasures that could avoid the paralysis. They must be the Du Pu Yi. Compared to Lin Ling and the others' divine artifacts to avoid the poison fog, this was definitely much worse.
Lin Ling and the others were not in a hurry.
They smiled and looked at the group of people.
Leader, someone's here.
The number of people in the swamp was not small. There were more than 100 of them, and many of them were experts. Of course, these experts were nothing to Lin Ling.
Even before he exchanged for the treasures, he was not afraid of them, let alone now.
You want to snatch the treasure?
Hee,
there are only a few of us.
I don't think they would dare.
When Lin Ling and the others smiled, the person from the alliance was first shocked. Then he said with disdain. They clearly didn't fear Lin Ling and the others at all. They were even waiting for Lin Ling and the others to snatch the kill so that they could deal the fatal blow. Therefore, they slowly killed the desolate lotus flower. However, even after they slowly tortured the desolate lotus flower to death and even obtained the golden fleece flower, the group of people still remained indifferent. The leader even waved the golden fleece flower in his hand in an attempt to entice the group of people and make them act foolishly. Unfortunately, it was to no avail. On the contrary, the group of people were chatting and laughing, and their eyes more or less revealed a trace of disdain.
Leader, what are they doing?
Finally, someone couldn't help but ask the leader.
In truth, the leader was frowning as well, and his face was filled with suspicion.
We are from the Black Wind Alliance. What alliance are you from? What were they doing here?
The doubts in his heart grew stronger and stronger as the leader opened his mouth to ask.
We're from the God Slayer Alliance. Don't worry, we won't steal the golden fleece flower from you. We're only here to try our luck. Lin Ling smiled and said calmly when he saw the puzzled faces of the people in the swamp. Naturally, they didn't come here to try their luck. Instead, it was because there was a considerable amount of golden fleece flower in the swamp, and Lin Ling came here for that. However, Lin Ling also wanted to wait for this group of people to leave before digging. Although Lin Ling was not afraid of this group of people, it would be best if he did not cause any trouble. Right now, his main priority was to get rich.
Try my luck.
Hearing Lin Ling's words, the leader couldn't help but sneer. These 5 people must be stupid. How could the golden fleece flower be obtained by luck? So it's a bunch of idiots.
Let's go.
The others also cast disdainful gazes over. They were too lazy to waste any more time here. Leader, something's wrong. But at this time, a skinny young man pulled the leader and revealed an unfathomable look, which made the leader frown and immediately looked at him suspiciously. Although the strength of this young man in front of him was not very good, but he was quite clever and had made many unexpected discoveries. First, I've never heard of the God Slayer Alliance. This means that they're not from the 100 Men Alliance. However, they're too calm. They didn't panic at all when they met the 100 Men Alliance. Second, try your luck? It's more like cheating a child. They've been waiting on the hill for so long. I'm afraid they have other plans. Perhaps they found some treasure here. The skinny young man said seriously. He looked at Lin Ling and the others with an expression that said, I've seen through you. Hearing you say that, something is indeed wrong. Damn, I was almost fooled.
The leader slapped his forehead as if he had suddenly realized something. At this moment, everyone's gazes also turned to Lin Ling and the others.
Why are you here?
The leader enunciated each and every word clearly.
On the hill, Lin Ling and the others saw that the group was about to leave. However, they suddenly turned around and walked back.
This made them unhappy.
What we do is none of your business.
Let's mind our own business. Lin Ling smiled and said politely as usual.
Hee, look at you. You seem to be waiting for something.
At this moment, the skinny young man suddenly shrugged his shoulders and said with a smirk, "Suddenly, we don't want to leave anymore."
Obviously, the Black Wind Alliance deliberately went against the God Slayer Alliance. Whatever the God Slayer Alliance wanted to do, they would not allow it. Sit. Sit. Sit.
Come, let's drink.
Following that, the people of the Black Wind Alliance all sat down and began to drink and eat in a carefree manner. They even started to play drinking games. Under such circumstances, Jianghu and the others were all furious. Those guys were definitely doing it on purpose.
They had given them enough face and waited for the Black Wind Alliance to hunt down the wild lotus before they planned to dig it up.
However, the other party did not give them any face.
Leader.
Chen Wu and Wu Jiang immediately looked at Lin Ling. Lin Ling curled his lips and walked down from the hill. Since they don't want to leave, let's beat them until they leave.
Good.
Jianghu and the others were shocked. After exchanging for treasures, they had always wanted to test the power of divine artifacts.
Now they had the chance.
Jianghu, don't kill all of them. Leave a few for me. Damn, I wanted to attack them before, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Luo Wuchang also smiled. The divine artifact in his hand was also ready. Seeing Lin Ling and the others walk down, the people on the swamp were stunned. Then they all laughed. The other party only had 10 people.
How dare they be so arrogant with such little strength?
Leader, they said they want to beat us up. Someone said to the leader with a smile. Then, the people of the Black Wind Alliance laughed. The leader even stood up and said indifferently, "Hee, you want to use force because you can't reason with us? Let me say this. We won't leave today. Let's see what you can do to us."
There were 120 people in the alliance, and 30 of them were at the half-step martial god realm.
They would definitely win if they let half of them go.
Ha ha ha.
The laughter became louder and louder. The Black Wind Alliance wanted to give the God Slayer Alliance a chance to absorb them. However, they were too lazy to absorb them now. However, how could they destroy them just because they wanted to? That was obviously impossible. Lin Ling and the others walked down slowly. However, they gradually quickened their pace. Then they started to jog and finally they started to run. In just a short moment, the speed of 1,000 Boundaries Realm erupted. Everyone had disappeared. Lin Ling and the others were not slow. In addition to the 1,000 Boundaries Realm speed enhanced by the innate divine artifact, their speed was close to 2,000 Boundaries Realm speed. Chapter 3894. Take this money to see a doctor. Bang bang bang. Immediately, a large number of people on the left were sent flying. Next, in the center, a large number of people were sent flying. Lin Ling and the rest's speed was simply too fast. The people from the Black Wind Alliance couldn't catch up to him at all. They couldn't even sense him. For a moment, the situation was one-sided. The leader was disdainful at first, but his expression gradually turned serious. His pupils constricted. Almost 10 people had actually messed up their 100-man alliance? Boss, not good. They all bought the Divine Heaven boots. Suddenly, someone shouted in a panic. Everyone reacted because they were all storing golden fleece flour and were preparing to buy the treasures they wanted. Therefore, they were very familiar with the treasures of the heavenly weapon category. Among them was the Divine Heaven boots, which could increase the speed of 1,000 worlds. However, the price was also very expensive, requiring 100 golden fleece flour. This price was definitely not simple. This was because even if an ordinary person had 100 golden fleece flowers, they would never use them to buy the Divine Heaven boots. This was because it was not worth it. They might as well leave the golden fleece flowers to buy divine arts or even cheap treasures. Moreover, there are a total of 16 pairs of Divine Heaven boots. Now that all of them have been bought, they have taken up more than half of them. Another person roared. He was angry and furious. He was angry because these guys were too rich. They actually bought a pair each.
Moreover, where did these guys get the golden fleece flower? They were angry because they couldn't catch up to the other party's speed with the divine sky boots. At this moment, they realized that speed was the key. How did this small alliance get so many golden fleece flower? The leader was so angry that he was trembling on the spot. At this moment, a figure suddenly appeared in front of him. At this moment, the figure was slowly walking over. The figure was wearing dazzling blue armor. When he saw the exquisite godly armor, the leader was so angry that his face turned black. If he remembered correctly, that was the azure godly armor. It needed 10,000 golden fleece flowers to buy it. 10,000? This was an astronomical figure. He even suspected that in the past 3 months, other than the 10 overlords, there was no one else in the 100 Realms Alliance who could gather such a number. You, why do you have so many golden fleece flower? The leader finally pointed at Lin Ling and roared as he was bombarded with all kinds of wealth until he found it hard to breathe. However, Lin Ling couldn't be bothered to talk nonsense and walked towards the leader step by step. Die! When the leader saw how arrogant Lin Ling was, he immediately gathered his realm essence and unleashed it with all his might. Rumble! The half-martial god realm punch landed squarely on Lin Ling's stomach. Even a first-layer martial god would not dare to receive the punch. Therefore, the leader even thought that his eyes were playing tricks on him because he had hit the target too easily. Speaking of which, didn't this guy have divine boots? Can't speed be increased? Ha ha ha. The leader instantly thought that the brat in front of him had been too complacent, so he had easily defeated him. Done. The other members of the Black Wind Alliance were also stunned. Gradually, a smile appeared on their furious faces. Their leader won? Crash! At this moment, a terrifying storm swept out. Soon after, people saw that the young man was still standing in front of the leader. Not only was he fine after taking a direct hit, he didn't even take a step back. What the fuck? The leader was less than half a meter away from Lin Ling. His jaw dropped as he stared at the tall figure in front of him. Don't you know that this armor can weaken the half-martial god realm's attack by 50%? Lin Ling calmly glanced at him. His defense was already outstanding, and with the help of the armor, the leader's attack was like an itch to him. I'm giving you face, yet you're shameless. Following this, Lin Ling spoke in a cold tone as he threw a punch at the leader's stomach. Puff! The leader spat out a mouthful of blood, including the food he had eaten last night. He bent over like a prawn and slowly fell to the ground. Bang bang bang. Lin Ling did not waste any time. He continued to punch and kick the leader on the ground until he begged for mercy. Humiliate. Lin Ling wore a cold grin. He had given them time to leave, but they insisted on humiliating him. He would not be satisfied if he did not beat them up. The leader on the ground was howling in pain. However, he lived up to his name as the leader of the 100 People Alliance. He did not beg for mercy. Instead, he glared angrily at Lin Ling. His eyes were implying that if it were not for the fact that they were wearing sacred artifacts, they would not be a match for the 100 People Alliance. Lin Ling sensed his gaze. He shook his head and said calmly, "Are you not convinced?" The leader did not speak. He continued to stare at Lin Ling. His gaze spoke volumes. It was obvious that he was furious and unwilling to accept this. However, without the sacred artifact, he could not do anything to Lin Ling. Thus, he could only suppress his anger. Very good. I like this kind of gaze of yours the most. It's filled with unwillingness and helplessness. Lin Ling also smiled. His words angered the leader so much that his body trembled. Arrogant, too arrogant. One had to know that he was one of the top 10 experts in the 36 academies. He was also famous in the Divine Ranking, Stairway Heaven, and Shen San Hall's strongest circle. Because of this, he could lead the Black Wind Alliance to roam the ancient dragon wasteland without being betrayed. However, he was now being trampled on by a small alliance of 10 people. This humiliation was too great. Bang bang bang. Unfortunately, Lin Ling did not care about his anger and grievance. He continued to trample on him and beat him up. Tian Ao and the rest laughed and beat up the people of the Black Wind Alliance in a frenzy. After a long time, Lin Ling looked down at the leader on the ground. A bag appeared in his hand. He slowly took out the royal crystals and threw them one by one at the leader's face. Take this money to see a doctor. Scram. Humiliation. This was a direct insult to one's self-esteem. After being hit in the face by the royal crystals and hearing Lin Ling's words, the leader was so angry that his teeth were chattering.
Take it to see a doctor. Was he pitying him?
Let's go.
The leader finally roared.
With a trembling heart, he supported his heavily injured body and turned to leave. The members of the Black Wind Alliance didn't dare to say anything. They stroked their chests and left dejectedly. They didn't expect that this matter could have been resolved. They were the ones who looked for trouble and refused to leave.
That was why they were humiliated. What kind of alliance is this? It's too strong.
We have defeated many alliances, including the Tiantai Alliance, the Ninth God Eye Alliance, and escaped from 100 Great Alliance many times. But those alliances are not as terrifying as this one.
Yes. It seems that we are stupid.
We all want to save up golden fleece flowers to buy precious treasures, but we forgot that we have to eat one bite at a time.
Sometimes it's not good to look too far ahead. Yes. We should learn from them and buy cheap treasures.
The main thing is to increase our strength.
This way, we can collect golden fleece flowers faster.
Yes.
Chapter 3895. Intimidating.
Wait. But at this moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out, causing all of the Black Wind Alliance to stop. You said the Ninth God's Eye?
The one who spoke was Lin Ling.
The leader suddenly clenched his teeth. This God Slayer alliance was too much.
They actually wanted to humiliate them.
Where is the Ninth God's Eye?
However, Lin Ling spoke again.
However, as the saying goes, a warrior prefers death to humiliation.
Therefore, the Black Wind Alliance remained silent.
The leader looked at Lin Ling furiously without saying a word.
Kill us if you have the ability.
Otherwise, don't think we'll listen to you. This caused Lin Ling's eyes to turn even colder. The Ninth God's Eye.
This was a senior that Lin Ling knew in the Yen province. Lin Ling had also helped him in the Starry Sky Forest. He was also one of the 6 great God Eyes.
He didn't expect that the Ninth God's Eye would appear here.
Lin Ling had always treated this senior as a good friend. Now that he knew that the Black Wind Alliance was going to teach him a lesson, how could Lin Ling not be anxious?
Not going to say it?
Lin Ling's eyes turned cold. He knew that the Black Wind Alliance seemed to want to waste time with him. Therefore, he wanted to see who would be the one to waste more time and be more ruthless than Lin Ling. Next, Lin Ling walked forward step by step.
When the leader saw this, he sneered without the slightest fear.
If Lin Ling had the ability, then kill him.
Otherwise, it was impossible for him to lower his head.
Seeing how arrogant the leader was, everyone also puffed out their chests without any fear. Lin Ling walked forward step by step. However, he didn't walk toward the leader. Instead, he stopped in front of a skinny youth and looked down at him.
This youth was the mischievous fellow from before. Now that he was being stared at by Lin Ling, he immediately glared back, unwilling to be outdone.
No matter what, he was still a genius of the academy.
If he were to lose, he could accept it, but if he were to lower his head, it was absolutely impossible.
However, Lin Ling just looked at him like this.
His eyes were like an ancient well without ripples, as if he had seen countless storms and waves. This made the youth feel that his showing off was simply the stubbornness of a child in front of Lin Ling. Of course, this was what the thin and weak young man was thinking. The other members of the Black Wind Alliance were laughing and praising the young man's backbone.
Not bad, he didn't weaken the Black Wind Alliance's prestige.
They were all geniuses and experts. It was possible to defeat them, but to make them submit was very, very difficult. The leader's lips curled into a confident smile. However, Lin Ling still didn't say anything. Instead, he stretched out his hand and slapped him.
Pa!
The sound of the slap was crisp and clear, but the skinny young man still stubbornly stared at Lin Ling. His gaze was fearless.
Pa!
Lin Ling didn't say much and slapped him again. That slap was not powerful, nor was it fast.
It only produced a crisp sound. Pa pa pa. Time passed quietly just like that. What was shocking was that Lin Ling was still slapping the young man's face.
He didn't say anything, nor did he kill the other party. In the beginning, the members of the Black Wind Alliance were full of arrogance, but gradually, that spirit was restrained. When they looked at the young man again, blood was flowing from the corner of his mouth, and his cheeks were swollen.
He was still looking up at Lin Ling.
However, his gaze had lost its sharpness. There was a feeling of not daring to look at Lin Ling. The main thing was that the person in front of them was too quiet. Seeing that they didn't submit, he didn't get angry at all. He just kept slapping their faces as if he was doing the most ordinary thing. Indeed, Lin Ling was very calm. This calmness made the members of the Black Wind Alliance panic. There was a very true saying, the more unfathomable an enemy was, the more terrifying it was. Right now, they couldn't see through Lin Ling, and they didn't know what Lin Ling was going to do next. Tianao and the others were standing behind Lin Ling. They were also silent, but they could feel a strange atmosphere. That was power. No matter how arrogant and unyielding these people were, under Lin Ling's silent actions, their arrogance quietly collapsed. Compared to the Black Wind Alliance, Lin Ling was like a true god of martial arts who had experienced great storms and waves. What's the matter with the ninth god eye? At this moment, the leader couldn't help but ask the person next to him when he saw his underling being slapped. The ninth god eye is an old monster in the Yen state. He formed an alliance with a dozen old monsters. Last time, we stole the golden fleece flower, and we also took care of it. Seeing that their alliance was old, we didn't take them in, but drove them away. Someone immediately replied. Do you know their whereabouts? The leader asked anxiously. This I don't know, the person hurriedly replied. After getting all the information, the leader couldn't help but look at Lin Ling and say, Sir, the ninth god eye has had some friction with us, but we didn't kill them. They're still alive. It was clear that he had been frightened by Lin Ling's strange actions and had completely surrendered. Slap, slap, slap. But Lin Ling said nothing. He continued to slap the youth's face as if he was killing a chicken to warn the monkeys. The voice was crisp and clear, but it was also heavy, like thunder in everyone's hearts. On the other hand, the leader cursed furiously in his heart when he saw this. Looks like that blue-robed young man is slightly younger than me, but isn't he a little too mature? Who knows where the ninth god eye is? He immediately said to the people of the Black Wind Alliance. At this moment, all the arrogance in his heart had disappeared. He knew that if he continued to be arrogant, the blue-robed youth would continue to slap him until the end of time. Madman. This was another evaluation he had of the blue-robed youth. Boss, I think I saw them at the seismic mountain range. Someone said as he wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. Hearing that, the leader quickly shouted, At the seismic mountain range. After saying that, he was afraid that Lin Ling didn't know the place, so he pointed to the distance and said, In that direction, it's only half a day's walk. You have the divine boots, so you can reach there in 6 hours. After saying that, he looked at Lin Ling anxiously. However, Lin Ling was still slapping the skinny youth's face. He was extremely majestic. However, he finally stopped. The skinny youth had already been slapped until he looked like a little fatty. It could be said that he had slapped his face until it was swollen to look fat. Seeing that Lin Ling had stopped, everyone let out a sigh of relief. The heavy burden in their hearts had finally been lifted. When they came to their senses, they realized that they were all sweating profusely. They had never expected that their stubbornness and arrogance would crumble under Lin Ling's actions. Let's go. Lin Ling ignored them and led Tianao and the others to the seismic mountain range. Because Lin Ling wanted to know whether the ninth god eye was dead or alive. If they were late and the ninth god eye met with misfortune, Lin Ling would regret it. They're finally gone. Chapter 3896. The whereabouts of the ninth god's eye. That pressure was formless and colorless, but it was as powerful as a martial god's aura. On the other hand, even if a martial god didn't kill them, just looking at them was enough to make them feel a huge amount of pressure. He looked so young, but I didn't expect him to be so powerful. He subdued us without a fight. Our strength is just child's play in his eyes. The leader sighed and the bitter smile on his face deepened. He still had not digested the terror brought by the young man. At this moment, Lin Ling was heading toward the seismic mountain range. Lin Ling decided not to dig up the golden fleece flower for the time being, because he suddenly realized that it would take too long to harvest the golden fleece flower with the current manpower. If the previous incident were to happen again, it would take a lot more time. Therefore, Lin Ling decided to recruit more people. The ninth god's eye was one of them. Lin Ling told Tianao and the others about his idea, and they immediately nodded. Chen Ting and Chen Wu said, We know some experts. If we use the golden fleece flowers as a reward, they will join our alliance. Can we rely on them? Lin Ling asked. Their temperaments are not bad. We can rely on them. Chen Ting and Chen Wu nodded. They knew that the Black Wind Alliance was just a small alliance. If they encountered the 100 Worlds Alliance, they would not be a match for them. Even if they could win, the God Slayer Alliance would waste a lot of time. Therefore, it was indeed an urgent matter to recruit people. The Seismic Mountain Range. This was one of the miraculous places in the ancient dragon wasteland. Its gravity was extremely terrifying and had the weight of 1,000 worlds. This meant that when they walked into the mountain range, they would have to bear the weight of 1,000 worlds. The mountain range that Lin Ling was heading toward only had the weight of 2,000 worlds. Therefore, they could barely withstand it. It was said that there were even more terrifying mountains with the weight of 10,000 worlds. That was where it was truly difficult to move. Not long after, Lin Ling separated from Chen Ting and the others. He rushed into the seismic mountain range alone, while Chen Ting and the others went to look for their friends. At this moment, at a corner of the mountain range, a battle was still going on. More than 10 experts were attacking a desolate tree and many of them were injured. Luckily, they were half martial god realm experts. Thus they did not inflict any fatal injuries to Qin Nan. On the contrary, the desolate tree began to sway under the attacks of the crowd. I'm old. I can't compare to those young people. Someone said with a sigh. Because, if these old monsters were placed in the 9 provinces, every one of them would be an indomitable existence. However, in the ancient dragon desolate land, experts were as common as clouds. Many of the rising stars were not weaker than them. They could only watch helplessly. Now they had only obtained a total of 20 golden fleece flowers, but it had taken them a lot of time. Moreover, in the process of collecting the golden fleece flower, they had to be on guard against others snatching their spoils of war. Some alliances were extremely cunning. They did not devour them, nor did they destroy them. Instead, they let them fight to the death, and then reap the benefits. In that case, he wouldn't even have to pay him. And right now, there was an alliance called Purple Wolf eyeing them covetously. This alliance had 200 people and 3 leaders. They were all half-step martial gods, but they all possessed 8th grade ultimate desolate bodies. And in the alliance, there were 80 half-step martial gods. They could not be underestimated. Hee, those old bastards are about to succeed. Let's prepare to attack. However, they are really useless trash. Working together to kill a desolate tree, they actually took so long. Sigh. The leaders stared ahead and said indifferently. At this moment, a rumble finally came from ahead. The huge desolate tree finally collapsed, and a ray of golden light bloomed. This caused the eyes of all the members of the Violet Wolf Alliance to light up. They were just about to attack when the ground suddenly started to rumble. After that, an enormous toad crawled out from the ground. This toad was like a mountain, and its mouth was 100 meters wide. At the instant it appeared, the entire mountain range started to shake. Oh no, it's the devil toad. Sigh. The expressions of the Purple Wolf Alliance members changed drastically. None of them dared to attack, because they knew that the devil toad was not a demon, but a plant. No, it should be said that it was a combination of a plant and a demon. However, the devil toad was extremely terrifying. Its strength was estimated to be in the 3rd level of the martial god realm. It was much stronger than an ordinary desolate tree. Generally speaking, other than the 100 Alliance, which had absolute numbers and strength, the other alliances were not qualified to fight against it. They might even be wiped out. Moreover, the Purple Wolf Alliance already knew that powerful alliances like the Xianxia Alliance and the Alliance had been devoured by the Devil Toad. Those alliances were half a step into the 100 Alliance. They had more than 500 experts, but they were all useless. Let's go! Let's go! Fortunately, those old bastards are attracting the Devil Toad's attention. Otherwise, we would all be wiped out. Let's go! Boss, don't you want that golden fleece flower? Idiot! Idiot, life is more important. Of course, if those old geezers can snatch the golden fleece flower from the mouth of the devil Huang Sha, then we'll snatch it from outside. But if they all die here, then we don't want that golden fleece flower. Let's go! The members of the Purple Wolf Alliance retreated. As for the old monsters, their faces all turned pale. Obviously, they recognized the terrifying existence before them. They immediately laughed bitterly. The gravity of the seismic mountain range was already terrifying. They had used up all their strength to kill that desolate tree. Now, an even more terrifying existence had appeared. They did not even have the strength to escape, let alone kill the devil toad. I didn't expect that we would all die here. One of the old men shook his head regretfully. He was the ninth god eye. Ninth old bastard, although we are all going to die here, it is my honor to know you. Another old man said. These people did not know each other. They had met on the way and formed an alliance. However, after being in the alliance for a long time, they had become like-minded, so their relationship became better and better. Sigh. The ninth god eye sighed. Clearly, he was still unwilling to accept this. Croak. At this moment, the giant devil toad finally opened its mouth and tried to swallow them. Everyone's faces turned ashen. However, in the blink of an eye, a figure shot over from afar like a cannonball. It passed through the crowd and shot into the devil ghost toad's mouth. The devil ghost toad felt that it was delicious and actually closed its mouth, stirring it up and down. This. The ninth god eye and the others were all dumbfounded. The members of the Purple Wolf Alliance in the distance also stopped in their tracks. They were all confused. Previously, someone seemed to have rushed out of the toad's mouth. Was there such a stupid person in the world? Dual sword style. However, at this moment, a low voice suddenly sounded. Moreover, this voice came from the devil toad's mouth. Chapter 3897. Join the God-slaying alliance. The gigantic devil toad trembled. Then, its entire body was torn apart. Countless pieces of flesh and blood splattered in all directions like rain. Amidst the stinking flesh and blood, a monster-like figure holding two swords walked out step by step. Everyone was stunned. A third-level martial god like Desolate Tree had been killed in a single blow? Thump thump. Everyone's hearts violently pounded, unable to believe what had just happened. Your Excellency, you're amazing. The ninth god eye and the others also spoke. After all, this person had saved them. Old brother Ninth, after not seeing you for so long, have you forgotten about me? But at this moment, the monster slowly walked out and put away the two swords in his hands. His aura quietly receded, and he gradually took the appearance of a young man. His right hand sucked behind him, and a golden fleece flower on the ground flew over. The young man grabbed it and immediately threw it to the ninth god eye. However, the ninth god eye ignored the golden fleece flower. Instead, he looked in disbelief at the newcomer. It's you, Lin Ling? This must be fake. How could I, Lin Ling, be fake? Seeing this, Lin Ling faintly smiled and walked forward. The ninth god eye fiercely rubbed his eyes, still in disbelief. This was because last time in the Starry Sky Forest, Lin Ling was like a junior to him. But in these last few years, Lin Ling had already grown to this level? One blow had killed a third-level martial god like Desolate Tree. Heavens, this little monster. He couldn't help but sigh, thinking back to the Yen province's arena. At that time, Lin Ling had accidentally saved him, so he felt somewhat grateful to this junior Lin Ling for helping him many times. But he hadn't expected that in the end, Lin Ling would actually help him. Old Ghost Ninth, you know him? Too amazing. He doesn't seem very old, and his cultivation isn't very high, but his fighting power is heaven-defying. As expected of the Chongjiang River, each new generation surpasses the previous. The old ghosts behind the ninth god eye all sighed. I also didn't know that he would grow so quickly. The ninth god eye helplessly shook his head and looked at the golden fleece flower in his hand. But at this moment, Lin Ling smiled and explained why he had come. As they listened, the ninth god eye's group frowned, and in the end they asked, "Join you?" That's right. If you join us, the golden fleece flower will come faster. You won't have to risk your lives to fight the desolate tree. I see. The ninth god eye couldn't help but look at his old companions, who immediately smiled. If you say join, we'll join. They had seen Lin Ling's strength before, and it could be said to be heaven-defying. With such a leader, they were convinced. Moreover, Lin Ling had saved their lives before. All right, then I will also risk my life to accompany you. Seeing that his old friend had agreed, the ninth god eye nodded, and then he bitterly smiled. I didn't think that in this lifetime, these old bones of mine would have to call you chief. The affairs of the world are unpredictable. Haha, if you want to be the leader, I'll let you be. Lin Ling heartily laughed. Don't.
If I'm the leader, these old fellows won't accept me. You should be the leader.
The ninth god eye waved his hand. Lin Ling chatted with him for a while, and then he looked into the distance and indifferently said, "Everyone, you've been watching for so long.
Aren't you tired?"
With these words, the members of the Purple Wolf Alliance hidden in the distance walked out, their numbers vast and imposing.
Sir, your strength is truly incredible. However, I wonder if you have any complaints about us? One of the leaders of the Purple Wolf Alliance indifferently said.
He was filled with fear of Lin Ling, because the latter had been able to kill a martial god.
His strength was unfathomable. How could he know that Lin Ling had already fused his talents and activated the tyrannical Song Sword and the Direct Inheritance Nether Sword to the peak? Especially the Direct Inheritance Nether General. A wisp of divine power rippled. He had relied on this sword to kill the demonic Baron Toad.
Lin Ling cut to the chase as he stared at the Purple Wolf Alliance, who looked as if they were about to face a great enemy.
It's nothing. It's just that I don't like it when others take advantage of others. So, you have to hand over all the golden fleece flower. Otherwise, I don't mind annihilating you. Arrogant. The Purple Wolf Alliance had many people, but Lin Ling had threatened to annihilate them. This time, the members of the Purple Wolf Alliance had ugly expressions.
However, they had to admit that this young man was indeed very strong.
I believe you can do it alone, but can you guarantee that the old fogey behind you won't die? At this time, another more cunning leader sneered. Hearing this, Lin Ling didn't say anything. A jade token appeared in his hand, and he began to buy. Divine boots. Divine armor. Divine weapons. Then, the light of treasures soared into the sky.
A large pile of treasures was thrown on the ground by him, emitting dense divine power.
Innate divine weapons? This also shocked the members of the Purple Wolf Alliance, and their eyes turned red. That guy actually had so many golden fleece flower?
One had to know that this pile of treasures was absolutely impossible to buy without 2,000 golden fleece flower.
Brother Digio, these divine weapons all belong to you. Ignoring their shock, Lin Ling looked at the ninth god eye and said. The number of golden fleece flower he had now reached tens of thousands.
He didn't care about this little bit of money. Moreover, only with effort could there be gains.
He understood this principle. Leader, this is so embarrassing. The ninth god eye didn't say anything, but the old monsters behind him all gasped. They actually wanted those innate divine weapons, but they were embarrassed. This made them look a little funny. The leader gave it to us. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Take it. However, the ninth god eye had been with Lin Ling for a long time and knew Lin Ling's personality. He immediately laughed loudly, picked up the divine weapons on the ground, and put them on. He poured his realm essence into them, and his strength instantly increased. Now that they had a divine artifact, they were no longer people who could be trampled on. Sensing the great increase in strength of the ninth god eye and the others, Lin Ling also looked at the Purple Wolf Alliance. The three leaders of the Purple Wolf Alliance had ugly expressions. Those old bastards could be said to be armed to the teeth now. In addition, there was that fierce young man. How were they going to fight now? Aggrieved. Hand over all the golden fleece flower, roared one of the leaders.
After speaking, he took out his golden fleece flower and threw them all on the ground.
Let's go.
Then, he was the first to leave, but from his appearance, it was clear that he was so angry that he was cursing the heavens and earth.
The others were the same. They vomited blood as they handed over their precious golden fleece flower and then angrily left. More than 100 golden fleece flower had appeared on the ground. This harvest was clearly not enough to catch Lin Ling's eye, but it made the ninth god eye and the others incredibly excited. They were rich. Brother Digio, follow me and there will be plenty of opportunities for you to get rich. Chapter 3898. Crazy Growth. 2 hours later, all of them stopped at an ancient hill. Lin Ling gazed into the distance. It wasn't long before Chen Ting and the others returned, and they brought quite a few people with them. Chen Ting and the others were all experts in the strongest circle. They had been training outside for many years, so they naturally knew some experts. At this moment, they were pulling all these experts into the God-slaying alliance. These people were all gathered at the foot of the hill. Then, they looked at Lin Ling with puzzlement in their eyes. This was the leader of the God Slayer Alliance? Were they all going to listen to Lin Ling now? Clearly,
They were somewhat resistant to this. After all, if Chen Ting and the others were the leaders, they would still be somewhat convinced. But Lin Ling? This was a new face. Not only had they never seen him in the strongest circle, they had never even heard of him. Lin Ling had also guessed what they were thinking. He did not say much, and directly used the jade token to purchase the treasures, and then scattered them all over the ground. Holy shit, 9 heavens bow? Divine Astral Sword. That's the Divine Astral Sword. Everyone stared at the divine artifacts on the ground. Even their breathing stopped. Some of them even had greedy looks in their eyes. If it weren't for Chen Ting and the others, they would have snatched the treasures and run away. Seeing their appearance, Lin Ling immediately laughed disdainfully. Look at you guys. You're moved by this little bit of treasure? He's really someone who can't achieve great things. This sentence was a direct reprimand. However, no one dared to retort because they could see that Lin Ling's reprimand was not an act. It was truly a magnanimity that was not pleasing to his eyes. Moreover, even if it was an act, as long as they were given these god tools, so what if they were scolded a little? Let me tell you, if you follow me, you might be able to buy as much as 70% of the divine weapons. Lin Ling continued. Furthermore, you guys can buy divine and mystical treasures faster than others. How about it? Do you want to join us? Join. Everyone roared. Unless they were idiots, there was no reason for them not to join. These deafening noises caused Lin Ling to smile faintly. The God Slayer Alliance had started to expand, and their numbers had reached over 100. To these people, Lin Ling did not intend to make them loyal and devoted. They only had a relationship of mutual benefit. And that was enough. Set off. Next, Lin Ling began to crazily harvest the golden fleece flower. This was because his goal was different from these people. His goal was the number 1 and number 2 treasures in the divine weapon category. In total, it was probably more than 1,000,000 golden fleece flower. This was also the reason why Lin Ling needed to strengthen the God Slayer Alliance. Over here, 562. Over here, 733. 800. With the protection of a large number of experts, Lin Ling's digging speed became much faster. In fact, they were even brazenly digging. Sir, this is the God Slayer Alliance's territory. We've reserved the entire place. Every time they went to a new place, the 100 experts of the God Slayer Alliance would explode with powerful strength, intimidating the other alliances, and then dominate that place. Unknowingly, most of the treasures in the divine weapon category shops were bought by the God Slayer Alliance. God damn it, who is so excessive to buy more than half of the divine weapons? The rest are all expensive items. How are we going to buy them? In the various alliances, there were countless complaints, but they did not know who had snatched those treasures. As time passed, the God Slayer Alliance gradually became famous in the ancient dragon wasteland. It could be said that they were half a step into the 100 great alliances. TSK 500,000 golden fleece flower. Lin Ling, on the other hand, was getting more and more excited as he looked at his harvest. Currently, he was also full of treasures. His attack, defense, and speed had all increased greatly. Next, he only needed to buy the first and second treasures in the divine weapon category. Then he could enter the divine weapon category. As for the divine weapon category, Lin Ling was not interested. His goal was the divine weapon category, especially the fruit of fortune and the fruit of immortality. He was even going to buy treasures that could help him break through to the next realm. Of course, his greatest interest was still the first divine legacy. He had already planned to save up and buy a divine legacy. However, while Lin Ling was crazily plundering, Lin Ling also knew that the 10 overlords were also crazily plundering. Because they had more people, their speed of harvesting golden fleece flower was only slightly slower than Lin Ling's. Lin Ling also knew that as the God Slayer Alliance became more and more famous, it would not be long before the 100 alliances would be eyeing them like flies. Therefore, Lin Ling had to make use of this time to harvest more golden fleece flower and strengthen the God Slayer Alliance at the same time. Here at the Poison Lake, 1,200 stalks. There are 2,779 stalks in the salt pans. After the alliance became stronger, Lin Ling also began to march toward the middle area of the golden fleece flower. As for the ancient dragon wasteland, all kinds of news were floating out like a rolling snowball. This was because in this short month, various alliances had suddenly emerged. Among the 100 alliances, A few alliances had been replaced, and there were also new alliances that had emerged. Of course, among the new alliances, the most dazzling was the God Slayer Alliance. The growth of this alliance could be said to be like a virus. After its development, it was simply unstoppable. Currently, it had completely entered the eyes of the 100 alliances. However, what surprised them was that the God Slayer Alliance had a large number of members. It had already developed into a 1,000-member alliance. Moreover, there were also many leaders. There were more than 50 of them, and each of them was very powerful. Moreover, they did not kill steal, but they dominated the territory. This was very suspicious. God Slayer Alliance sounds familiar. I think I've heard of it in the 9 prefectures. That's right. It has indeed appeared in the 9 prefectures. However, I reckon that the God Slayer Alliance in the 9 prefectures is not the same as the God Slayer Alliance here. After all, the strongest members in the God Slayer Alliance in the 9 prefectures are only 4 or 5. They are completely incomparable to the God Slayer Alliance here. It seems like they have the same name. However, there are more than 50 leaders. TSK, they can be considered as the 100 alliances. According to the rumors, there is actually a leader behind the scenes in the God Slayer Alliance. However, no one knows who it is. This is because when there is trouble, it is always the 50 leaders who take action. Their strength is already outstanding among the half-step martial gods. I heard that there are also many martial gods among them. The hunter will shoot the bird that sticks out. It's time to attack the God Slayer Alliance. Our alliance will become even more powerful after devouring them. Voices rang out in the ancient dragon wasteland. The small alliances were afraid of the God Slayer Alliance, but the 100 alliances were eyeing the God Slayer Alliance covetously. Of course, the news had also spread to the 10 overlords. God Slayer Alliance? Could it be Lin Ling's alliance? Many people were puzzled about the Heaven Alliance formed by the Duan family and the new Heavenly Court. Chapter 3899. The Domineering God Slayer Alliance. Haha, how could a mere Lin Ling create such a huge alliance? It's just a matter of having the same name. Think about it. Young Demon Lord and the others have worked hard for so many years, but the God Slayer Alliance is still as weak as a dog. Therefore, a mere Lin Ling alone doesn't have such strength. In the Sky Alliance, Duan Wuhan said confidently. The crowd analyzed the situation and nodded in agreement. It was indeed impossible. Lin Ling was not even a half-step martial god. How could he gather so many people? They were obviously overthinking. Don't worry. This God Slayer Alliance will soon be swallowed up. Many people in the 100 alliances are eyeing them covetously. Duan Wuhan said again. The pitiful God Slayer Alliance. They've just made a name for themselves, but now they're just going to benefit others. Many people in the Sky Alliance agreed with this. They were not blindly confident in their guess. It was because the Heavenly Alliance was so powerful that they had occupied 60% of the barren trees on the land. That was how they had grown to their current state. On the other hand, the God Slayer Alliance only had 1,000 people. At most, they would be given 10 to 20,000 golden fleece flowers. Perhaps this was still too much. It was a pity that they didn't know that Lin Ling had already reached 1 million golden fleece flower, and he had exchanged them for the 2 most powerful treasures in the divine weapon category. With this exchange, the entire ancient dragon wasteland was shocked. Everyone was guessing who was so rich and overbearing. After all, even though the 2 treasures could kill martial gods, they were one-time use treasures. Since he had the golden fleece flower, why didn't he exchange them for more practical treasures? For example, a talent exchange or a treasure that could increase one's talent. No one could figure it out. Moreover, they began to imagine who had bought those treasures. However, most of them believed that only the 10 overlords had such wealth. However, no one expected it to be Lin Ling. We've returned to the time before liberation in one night. Moreover, the day of the opening of the ancient dragon wasteland is getting closer and closer. Once it opens, no one can guarantee how many people will enter. Will it be 500,000 or 1 million? After Lin Ling exchanged the treasures, he was overjoyed, but he also knew that time waits for no one. Because he still had a lot of things to exchange for. Therefore, he was also racing against time, trying his best to seize the treasures. When the time came, he would be able to shock the world with a single brilliant feat. Lin Ling, over here. The giant ghost continued to point out directions. At the moment, Lin Ling was no longer interested in the small areas of the golden fleece flower. His ambition had already fallen to the middle area, or even the larger area. Moreover, during this period of time, the God Slayer Alliance had already reached a membership of 2,000. Most importantly, each of them had a god weapon with them. They were extremely awesome. They were absolutely confident that they could fight against the Great 100 Alliance. A long time later, under the giant ghost's guidance, the 2,000 experts appeared in a desert. There were also many small alliances in the desert. However, when they saw the God-slaying alliance, their expressions changed and they immediately retreated. Of course, there were a few alliances that didn't want to retreat. They were the Cannon God Alliance and the Lone Star Alliance. The leaders of these alliances were the real experts on the divine ladder. Their alliances were half a step into the 100 great alliances. However, when these alliances came face to face with the God-slaying alliance, the Cannon God Alliance and the other powerful alliances immediately retreated. This was because in their eyes, the God-slaying alliance was well-equipped, armed to the teeth, and full of energy. Each of them was an expert who could fight against 100 people. Are you going to scram or not? On a sand dune, an old man from the God-slaying alliance said coldly. It was the 9th God Eye. He had already stepped into the martial god realm and was awe-inspiring. Although I admit that you are very powerful, you want us to scram? Dream on. The experts from the Cannon God Alliance looked at each other and gritted their teeth. Although they had always been afraid of being devoured by powerful alliances, they didn't expect this day to come. Destroy them. The members of the God-slaying alliance all knew their leader's character. He didn't want to waste time. Therefore, once someone refused to comply, he would destroy them without a second word. He wouldn't even bother to devour them. When the word destroy came out, a terrifying aura surged out. A terrifying aura surged into the sky. Cannon God Alliance, Lone Star Alliance, and the other powerful alliances finally realized that each of them had a divine weapon. No, some of the tycoons had 2 or 3 god weapons, boots, armor, and broadswords. They were armed to the teeth. Looking at their leaders, they were all at the peak of the ancestor realm and had powerful armor. Even if all of them worked together, they wouldn't be able to harm a single strand of their hair. Being rich was just that awesome. We were a little impulsive just now. Can you let us leave? With such a huge gap, the Cannon God Alliance had no choice but to surrender. If they continued to fight, it would be a waste of effort. It's too late. Because you have wasted our time. You should know that our leader is worth tens of thousands of golden fleece flowers. You can't afford it. Tianao said coldly. In the past, he wouldn't have been a match for them. But now, he was an expert ranked 300th on the god ranking. Without a doubt, the opening of the god store had caused a huge shuffle in the god ranking. Some weak ones soared to the sky, while some strong ones fell from heaven to hell and were surpassed by others. This was the specialty of the god store. Otherwise, there wouldn't be 500,000 or even 1,000,000 experts trying to enter. Hearing the God Slayer Alliance's order to kill, the Cannon God Alliance's members turned ashen. They had never expected that they wouldn't be given any face even though they had begged for mercy. Wait! However, at this moment, a faint voice suddenly drifted out from the God Slayer Alliance's crowd. Although the voice was soft, it carried an unparalleled majesty that silenced the entire God Slayer Alliance. No one dared to say a word. From this perspective, it also showed that the God Slayer Alliance's discipline was strict. Then the crowd parted, and a young man in an ordinary blue robe walked out slowly. He smiled at the Cannon God Alliance's leader. It's you. The Cannon God Alliance's leader was stunned. He immediately recognized the blue-robed young man because he had fought with that young man in the salt pan. I didn't expect it to be you. Are you interested in joining the God Slayer Alliance? The person who had come was Lin Ling. He had also seen the Cannon God Alliance's leader, so he wasted some time to talk to him. The latter's talent was extremely good. He could turn his hands into cannons. Obviously, he was also a fierce general. The God Slayer Alliance lacked such experts. Yes, of course. But they don't want us anymore. Sigh, I regret it. The Cannon God Alliance's leader sighed softly. Then, his eyes suddenly lit up. He said anxiously, Why don't you plead for mercy for me? Help me put in a few good words in front of these leaders. Obviously, although the Cannon God Alliance was arrogant, it depended on who they were facing. In front of a colossus like the God Slayer Alliance, their arrogance didn't exist. But now, they didn't want them anymore. Okay, I agree. You guys can join the God Slayer Alliance. Chapter 3900. Frantically Gathering. You agreed? We're joining? The leader of the Canon Gods Alliance was dumbfounded. If it weren't for the fact that there were too many people in front of him, he would have cursed the blue-robed youth. Do you think the God Slayer Alliance is yours? You're just a worker. Do you think it's enough just because you agreed? Don't get us killed. After all, he also saw that those powerful leaders didn't say anything. This blue-robed youth didn't even have a godly armor. What right did he have to speak? Why? You don't believe me? Lin Ling saw the leader's expression and smiled faintly. Well, I'm grateful that you stood up for us. However, you'd better find someone who can speak. The leader of the Canon Gods Alliance immediately said with a smile. However, he almost shouted, I don't believe you. However, Lin Ling was here to help. Therefore, he was still very polite on the surface. Someone who can speak? I am. In the God Slayer Alliance, no one will dare to say no to me. Lin Ling smiled and said again. His words shocked the leader. Don't be too arrogant. Don't offend those leaders. I don't care if they get you killed, but don't get us killed. It was no wonder that he looked down on Lin Ling. Lin Ling wasn't even a martial god. In addition, he didn't have any treasures on him. Therefore, he naturally believed that those leaders with high cultivation levels and treasures would be the ones to speak. In the God Slayer Alliance, no one will dare to walk on the right if I walk on the left. However, when the leader kept blinking to signal Lin Ling to stop talking nonsense, Lin Ling spoke again as if it had nothing to do with him. Plop. The leader sat on the ground powerlessly and almost cried. It's over, it's over. It wasn't easy for him to meet someone he knew. He wanted to build a relationship with him, but he turned out to be a lunatic. No, he was a disaster. Don't you think so? However, at this moment, Lin Ling spoke again and looked at the 2,000 people behind him. That's right, leader. Yes. Everyone smiled faintly, but their voices rang out in unison like thunder, shocking the desert and causing it to explode. Rumble. Endless sand rained down like thunder, causing everyone in the Canon Deity Alliance to tremble. Leader. Could it be that the pauper youth who didn't seem to have any divine weapons was the most mysterious leader of the God Slayer Alliance? Obviously, they had also heard the rumors. There were countless leaders in the God Slayer Alliance. However, there was a truly mysterious leader who ruled over all of them. It was just that this leader was rarely seen. Of course, these were only rumors, and not many people were sure. And now, the Canon Deity Alliance was certain. Everyone in the God Slayer Alliance was shouting loudly. Even that martial god realm old monster who was covered in treasures was shouting loudly. If this wasn't real, then what was? Will you? At this moment, Lin Ling's laughter was heard once again. Yes, sir. How could the Canon Deity Alliance not agree? One by one, they knelt down on one knee. They were so excited that they almost couldn't take care of themselves. This was because they had also heard that the God Slayer Alliance was also a rich alliance. Their leader was very generous to his subordinates and gave them divine weapons as if they didn't cost anything. However, not everyone could join the God Slayer Alliance. All right, Chen Ting. Accept them and tell them the rules. Then, give them some treasures. Lin Ling turned to look at Chen Ting and the others. Well, sir, we have 3 alliances and we have 1,000 people. The Canon Deity Alliance leader said nervously. The leader of the Canon Gods Union said nervously. With so many people, he was afraid that Lin Ling would abandon them. Canon Deity, are you reliable? Lin Ling looked at them from the corner of his eyes and asked. Canon Deity? The Canon Deity Alliance leader was stunned. He immediately nodded and said, Yes, definitely. The leaders of the other 2 alliances quickly nodded and said, Although we aren't good people, we know the rules of the alliance. We can't do things like betrayal and betrayal. Great, that's great. Chen Ting, buy equipment for everyone. Buy whatever you like. Lin Ling laughed loudly. His voice made the people of the 3 alliances tremble. Buy equipment for everyone? How many golden fleece flowers would he need? They had long heard that the God Slayer Alliance was bold and unrestrained. Now that they had seen it for themselves, it was truly extraordinary. Greetings, sir. Everyone knelt down on one knee. This time, they were sincerely acknowledging Su Ke as their leader. Lin Ling nodded calmly. Currently, the God Slayer Alliance had 3,000 people. It was time to do some big business. Your mission is to protect me and not let anyone disturb me. If anyone disturbs me, kill them without mercy. Lin Ling said again. Yes, sir. Everyone nodded and felt their blood boil. Lin Ling then left to collect the golden fleece flowers in the area. He was very curious about how many golden fleece flowers there were in the middle of the area. Canon deity, do you have anyone you can rely on? Pull them all over. Don't be afraid of money. Sir has already said that we will devour as many people as we can. However, they must be at least at the peak of the martial ancestor realm. Most importantly, they must be reliable. If they betray the God Slayer Alliance, you will have to take responsibility. At this moment, Xianxia walked over and said to the people of the three alliances. Of course. When we were wandering in the ancient dragon desolate land, we came into contact with some small alliances. Their strength is not bad, but there are not many of them. As for their character, we have crossed swords a few times. They should be trustworthy. We know them too. They are all reliable. After all, we do not want to be chased away by the God Slayer Alliance. The people of the three alliances said hastily. Great. Pull them all over. Xianxia nodded with a smile. They knew that the 100 Alliance had begun to target the God Slayer Alliance. Therefore, the God Slayer Alliance had to grow stronger. At this moment, Lin Ling and the giant ghost walked forward. Behind them was the golden white evil ghost. The golden white evil ghost was also covered in treasures. Moreover, most of them were defensive treasures. It could withstand the attack of a level 3 martial god. Moreover, the demonic dragon in the Dragon Ball was strong enough to fight against a half-step martial god with a divine weapon in his hand. This was only the beginning. Once Lin Ling opened the unique treasure shop, Lin Ling would make sure that all of them reached the half-step martial god realm. The more people there are, the more golden fleece flowers will be consumed. I have to collect more. Lin Ling finally came to a stop. The vines in his left hand dripped down to the ground like black water. Then he started to dig wildly. Although the expenses had increased, and the golden fleece flowers were used like running water, the harvest would definitely be greater. TSK. We have just entered the ground and we have already found 1,000 golden fleece flowers. This is a land of great treasures. 2,211 golden fleece flowers to the east. 3,560 golden fleece flowers to the west. So few. Only 800 golden fleece flowers to the west. The God Slayer Alliance had occupied the area within 100 miles. This allowed Lin Ling to collect the golden fleece flowers without any scruples. Chapter 3901. Consecutive Breakthroughs. Scram. However, just as they approached within 100 miles, countless angry shouts sounded. It's you, Cannon God? Someone recognized the leader of the Cannon God Alliance. Hee. I'm now a member of the God Slayer Alliance. Scram. The leader of the Cannon God Alliance laughed heartily. He knew that the alliance that had stumbled into this area was one of the strongest alliances under the Great 100 Alliance. They were half a step into the Great 100 Alliance. The number of people on the other side also reached 3,000, and they were called the Great Dynasty Alliance. You want us to scram? Therefore, the other party didn't seem to be afraid of the God Slayer Alliance. Leader Xianxia, someone is here. In the past, the Cannon Deity Alliance could only flee with their tails between their legs when facing the Grand Dynasty Alliance. However, they were no longer the Cannon Deity Alliance but the God Slayer Alliance with a powerful backing. Boom! In the distant sky, thousands of people had also arrived. Their auras surged into the sky, shocking everyone. So many people? The expressions of the members of the Grand Court Alliance changed violently. Moreover, they sensed that not only were their opponents numerous in number, their strengths were extremely strong. All of them actually possessed a combat strength at the half-step martial god realm. When did this God Slayer Alliance become so powerful? Their leader was a tall and sturdy man. At this moment, his brows were tightly knitted. In the distance, many alliances were also watching this scene. To them, this was the strongest confrontation between the Nova Alliance and the Great 100 Alliance. Most importantly, everyone knew that the leader of the Great Dynasty Alliance was one of the newcomer kings. His strength was ranked 6th, and his name was the Great Dynasty King. And now, the two new alliances were clashing. Who knew what kind of intense sparks would fly from the collision? Retreat! However, just as everyone had this thought, the Great Dynasty Alliance retreated, not daring to fight at all. This meant that the God-Slayer Alliance was now the strongest alliance under the 100 Leagues. It's a little too late to think of leaving now. According to the rules of our God-Slaying Alliance, you must leave behind all the golden fleece flowers on you. However, the Great Dynasty Alliance had already retreated, yet the God-Slayer Alliance was unwilling to leave the matter at that. Because this was also the rule that Lin Ling had set. We already said to retreat, yet you insist on being overbearing. Could it be that you want both sides to suffer? The Great Dynasty Emperor was so angry that he started laughing. Did the God-Slayer Alliance think that they were the 100 Leagues Alliance? However, the members of the God-Slayer Alliance didn't say anything, but more and more people arrived from the distance. 3,000 elites had gathered, and all of them had divine weapons on them. They coldly looked at the Great Court Alliance. That's right. We want to fight until both sides suffer. Do you dare? Someone finally spoke. The ninth god Play with us. Let's see if you can afford to play with us. Let me tell you, we don't have much, but we have a lot of money. If we get injured, we can buy treasures to recover. Do you have any? Tian chimed in. Hearing this, everyone from the Great Dynasty Alliance was gnashing their teeth. The God-Slayer Alliance was too domineering. It was practically a gathering place for a bunch of lunatics. Everyone, leave the golden fleece flower and leave immediately. The Great Dynasty King pondered for a moment. In the end, he gritted his teeth and left behind 100 golden fleece flower before striding away. It wasn't that he wanted to swallow his anger, but he had no choice. Because if he were to go head-on against them, then there would only be a single outcome for his Grand Dynasty Alliance, and that was to be devoured. Now they had only lost a bit of face and some golden fleece flower, but the Great Court Alliance was still alive. They could barely accept this result. Get lost. Seeing the Great Dynasty Alliance retreat, everyone from the God-Slayer Alliance shouted angrily, not giving them any face at all. In the distance, the small alliances were pale with fright. The God-Slayer Alliance was truly frightening. They had already become a major alliance. This area has been sealed off by them. I saw that the God-Slayer Alliance was able to dispatch 10 people to deal with the Desolate Tree and other demons. This style and dominance is exactly the same as the Great 100 Alliance. They will definitely become part of the Great 100 Alliance. I just don't know who will be eliminated from the Great 100 Alliance. Following this, everyone was discussing spiritedly. At this moment, Lin Ling, who was at the center, had no idea what was happening outside. In fact, the reason he had expanded the alliance was so that there would be people to deal with these unexpected events. To the north, wow, 20,000 golden fleece flower. When Lin Ling reached the north, he was shocked. Dig, dig, dig. Dig. Lin Ling was also a bit crazy. He had collected more than 20,000 golden fleece flower in one go. This area was truly terrifying. 6 hours later, Lin Ling walked out. The 50 or so leaders had been waiting for Lin Ling for a long time. They had impatient looks on their faces, but no one dared to ask. Leader, how many? Only the ninth god had a good relationship with Lin Ling, so he asked on behalf of the others. More than 20,000 golden fleece flower. Lin Ling smiled and immediately replied. Wow, what the hell, it's only been 3 hours. The Cannon God and the other leaders who had just joined were undoubtedly shocked. They then counted on their fingers and said, according to the rules, if we take a third, that's close to 7,000 to 8,000 golden fleece flower. If we divide it among everyone, apart from the 50 leaders who take more, everyone will get 10. Ancestor, I kneel to you. Thinking of this, the leaders were so excited that they almost knelt down. That was because they had worked so hard and only obtained a few golden fleece flower in a day. However, they had only spent 6 hours here and obtained 10 golden fleece flower. Moreover, this was only the harvest of the small soldiers. The leaders' harvest was undoubtedly much greater. Don't worry, there will be more in the future. Lin Ling looked calm on the surface, but he was actually even happier than them. That was because this was only one of the areas in the middle area. There were probably more places than this. Let's go. Go. After that, Lin Ling waved his hand and led the God Slayer Alliance away from this place. Under the giant ghost's guidance, they moved on to the next location. At the same time, the people the Canon God Alliance had summoned also joined them one after another. The number of people had reached 5,000. They had completely entered the ranks of the 100 Great Alliances. Lin Ling naturally spent a large amount of golden fleece flower to buy divine weapons for them. He had almost bought all the divine weapons. Moreover, Lin Ling had tobacco on him. He could have bought it at half price, but the god store was too far away. To avoid wasting time, Lin Ling bought it with jade tokens. The first 3 types of treasures in the god store could not be bought with jade tokens. At that time, he would have to go to the god store personally. This area, 50,000 golden fleece flower. This area, 30,000. Tisk. TSK, 80,000. Tisk. After the number of people increased, Lin Ling's harvesting area also became wider. His harvest was bountiful. Lin Ling did not buy many divine arts from the god store. After all, he had too many tricks up his sleeve. The only thing that caught his eye was the 4th-ranked divine martial art divine ability. Chapter 3902. The news of 3 million people entering. This martial art came from the era of gods, and it is only an incomplete copy. Most importantly, there is a condition to cultivate this martial art. One must possess the power of Buddha God. Lin Ling's great sun calamity destroying bow cultivates the power of Buddha God, so he has barely met the requirement. The power of this martial art is also extremely terrifying. It cultivates the power of God. The power of God is even more vigorous than the power of ancestor. Currently, even martial god realm experts rarely possess this mysterious power. Even Lin Ling's true inheritance dark sword has a strand of the power of God. Of course, tyrannical song sword also has the power of God, but Lin Ling did not activate it. Of course, this Bodhi testimony divine art also has a power that Lin Ling values, that is, it can continuously increase the power of soul. Although the increase is very slow, only 1 step in a quarter of an hour, but it is a continuous increase. The longer the time, the greater the harvest. Currently, Lin Ling's soul is at 23,000 steps. It won't be long before it reaches 30,000 steps. And with the increase of soul, Lin Ling's step of wisdom will also be stronger, and the number of evil ghost jellyfish he can control will also increase. Bodhi testimony divine art, 500,000 golden fleece flowers. Unfortunately, it is an incomplete copy, divided into red Bodhi, yellow Bodhi, blue Bodhi, black Bodhi. These are the current cultivation realm. While Lin Ling is mining, he is also cultivating this powerful martial art with the power of God. Frankly speaking, this martial art is also the upgraded version of Great Sun Calamity destroying bow. But its power is even more powerful than the true inheritance dark sword. 500,000 golden fleece flowers, it is worth it. If this martial art is not an incomplete copy, and only those who possess the power of Buddha God can cultivate it, I am afraid it would have been bought long ago, and by the time they want to buy it, I will have already gathered enough golden fleece flowers before them. Lin Ling smiled. Next, he is going to store the golden fleece flowers, preparing to buy rare treasures. Of course, he also helped Yu, Big Brother, and the others find suitable martial arts and mystical abilities and bought them together. While Lin Ling was continuously digging for golden fleece flowers, the ancient dragon wasteland was also in an uproar. In this vast wasteland, everyone knew that the God-slaying alliance had risen. This was because while Lin Ling was mining, the God Slayer Alliance's 9th God Eye and the others had been furiously attacking. Unknowingly, they had already defeated one of the Great 100 Alliances and completely entered the Great 100 Alliances. It was said that the battle was extremely intense. The leaders of the God Slayer Alliance were all mobilized, and there were more than 100 experts. After that, the 5,000 troops clashed with one of the 100 Great Alliance. The 100 Great Alliance was defeated in an instant and was even devoured by the God Slayer Alliance. As a result, the God Slayer Alliance had more than 8,000 members. As for the 100 Great Alliance that had been eliminated, it was called the Supreme Alliance. It was formed by a group of old monsters, and each of them had monstrous strength. After being swallowed up by the God Slayer Alliance, the overall strength of the God Slayer Alliance had undoubtedly increased by another level. Other than that, there was also a rumor in the ancient dragon wasteland that the God-slaying alliance had a set of methods to harvest golden fleece flowers. If one joined the God-slaying alliance, the harvest of golden fleece flowers would be much higher than other alliances. This also led to many experts wanting to join the God Slayer Alliance. Unfortunately, without a certain level of strength, it was impossible to join. Most importantly, one's character was the key. As for the rumors circulating outside, Lin Ling, as the leader behind the scenes, had no idea at all. During this period of time, his strength had greatly increased, and his cultivation level had continuously broken through. He had reached level 8 martial ancestor realm. This was the result of him purchasing rare treasures to forcibly raise his strength. Furthermore, the fruits that could raise one's cultivation level did not have any side effects. However, one could only consume 2 of them, and the price was 100,000 golden fleece flowers. Of course, Lin Ling had also asked Tian-Ao to help him purchase them. Currently, he did not have the time to visit the godly store. This increase in strength was undoubtedly effortless. Even the ancestor's tribulation was much weaker, and the success rate was very high. After raising his cultivation level, Lin Ling also set his sights on the fruit of fortune. However, this fruit was extremely rare, so it was also very expensive. It actually cost 3 million golden fleece flowers. To an ordinary person, 3 million golden fleece flowers was simply unattainable. However, to Lin Ling, it was only a matter of time. After the God-slaying alliance had become stronger, Lin Ling had also begun to do whatever he wanted in the ancient dragon wasteland. He had plundered large areas of golden fleece flowers. Of course, on this day, the 9th God's Eye also brought a piece of news that Lin Ling could not afford to underestimate. Leader, the 5th month is about to begin. I heard that the number of people who want to enter has reached 3 million. 3 million people? This was undoubtedly a huge piece of news, and it was extremely unfavorable for the God-slaying alliance. After all, although the God-slaying alliance was very powerful, it was only one of the 100 alliances. It was still not strong enough to fight against the 10 overlords, let alone 3 million people. Why are there suddenly so many quotas? Lin Ling also knew that the situation had become somewhat troublesome. If there were too many people, it would be troublesome to harvest. If they were targeted by the 10 overlords, it would be inconvenient for the God-slaying alliance to do anything, let alone harvest. I heard that a god had appeared and discussed with the Curishin. In the end, the Curishin gave face to the god and relaxed the quota. The 9th God's Eye immediately said. Hearing this, Lin Ling nodded. So it was a god who appeared. Moreover, there are rumors that the ancient dragon wasteland is going to be reshuffled. The 100 alliances will also be devoured, leaving only the 10 overlords. After all, the 3 million people were summoned by the 10 overlords. The 9th God's Eye spoke again. The 10 overlords had begun to purge the 100 alliances. The God-slaying alliance would definitely not be able to escape this calamity. They would only survive if they joined one of the overlords. Currently, our leaders are discussing whether to find a suitable overlord to join them. It is up to you now. The 9th God's Eye spoke again. Lin Ling's eyes flickered. Finally, he raised his head and said, No need. We will become an overlord ourselves. Hearing this, the 9th God's Eye's heart trembled. Lin Ling, what a bold tone. One must know that the 10 overlords were formed by the 9 prefectures and the final world's apex giants. If the God-slaying alliance wanted to become an overlord, it meant that the God-slaying alliance would become a giant that the final world could not underestimate. Rather than seeking help from others, why not seek help from ourselves? Lin Ling's eyes were resolute. Currently, he had stored up a large amount of golden fleece flowers and was preparing to buy treasures in one go. However, he did not know how many golden fleece flowers were needed for the most expensive inheritance of the 4 great gods. Therefore, he had to collect as many golden fleece flowers as he could. If he joined the other overlords, then he would no longer be the master, but a guest. All the golden fleece flowers would be taken away by the overlords, and Lin Ling would only be able to take a small portion. Even the golden fleece flowers he had on him might be taken away. Of course, this was not what Lin Ling wanted to see. All of you, do your best to recruit people. No matter how strong they are, bring them in. Furthermore, I want all of you to occupy a region in the ancient dragon wasteland. Lin Ling spoke again. These words caused the 9th God's Eye's expression to turn grave. Chapter 3903. Encountering the 10 overlords. Also, when will the 3 million people arrive? Lin Ling asked again. This news was just released. I estimate that they will arrive in about 10 days.
The fastest is 7 days. That group of people should reach the ancient Yuan mountain range and enter this place.
The 9th God's Eye hurriedly said.
Only 7 days? I hope that they come in slowly.
Lin Ling's expression became more and more serious. This meant that he had to gather golden fleece flowers in 10 days at most and strengthen the god-slaying alliance. Only then would he not be afraid of the 3 million people and the 10 overlords. Of course, if he failed, Lin Ling would be exposed. At that time, even the 10 overlords would want to snatch the golden fleece flowers from Lin Ling. As for the result, Lin Ling would naturally not be able to resist the 10 overlords and could only obediently hand over the golden fleece flowers.
Time waits for no one. You guys are in charge of gathering martial artists. Leave half of you to protect me.
Lin Ling stood up and said.
Then, he led the giant ghost to gather the golden fleece flowers. At present, Lin Ling's strength was like a scholar who had been away for 3 days. However, Lin Ling knew that the ancient dragon wasteland was no longer a battle between individuals. It was a clash between major forces.
Unless one's strength was heaven-defying, it would be impossible to change the situation.
Dig, dig, dig.
Lin Ling, there are 80,000 golden fleece flowers here. There are 120,000 here.
In the following period of time, Lin Ling went crazy. The number of golden fleece flowers was also increasing. Currently, he had accumulated 10 million golden fleece flowers. This did not include the golden fleece flowers that he had distributed. Otherwise, he would have close to 20 million golden fleece flowers. While Lin Ling was crazily gathering, the God-slaying alliance was also crazily absorbing martial artists. Of course, this craziness made many people in the 100 Alliance unhappy. After all, they had always been curious about how the God-slaying alliance could grow so quickly. Therefore, they guessed that the God-slaying alliance must have a lot of golden fleece flowers. Otherwise, how could they convince the public?
Therefore, among the 100 alliances, a few alliances had decided to form an alliance to attack the God-Slayer alliance and plunder everything they had. They obviously knew that 3 million people from the outside world were about to enter the ancient dragon wasteland. At that time, their alliance would no longer exist. Therefore, they wanted to use this period of time to crazily collect golden fleece flower. Of course, it wasn't just them. In fact, many people in the top 100 alliance thought the same. Everyone was fighting for the final push. Lin Ling didn't know what was going on in the outside world. His goal was still to dig out the golden fleece flower. On this day, he walked into a new region. This was a vast expanse of lush green grass, and it was extremely peaceful. However, what surprised Lin Ling was that there were no alliances in this area. Something was wrong. Rumble. Just as this thought appeared in his mind, the ground suddenly split open.
Subsequently, a giant ancient snake slithered out. It was at least 1,000 miles long, and its giant head was raised high. Its eyes were icily staring at Lin Ling. This caused Lin Ling's heart to tremble. This was because before he came here, the God-Slayer Alliance had already cleared the area. Now, there was still a terrifying demonic beast here. This meant that this demonic beast had hidden from the God-Slayer Alliance's eyes. The ancient snake was huge and its entire body was white. It gave off a demonic feeling. A pair of strange green eyes stared at Lin Ling, and its giant mouth was constantly moving. However, Lin Ling could vaguely see that those were desolate vines, and there were a lot of them. These desolate vines were all martial gods. Usually, the Alliance would only be able to kill these desolate vines by using the human wave tactic. However, this ancient snake had swallowed them easily. This showed how terrifying this ancient snake was. It had probably reached the middle stage of the martial god realm. No wonder it could hide from the God-Slayer Alliance. You are the mastermind behind the God-Slayer Alliance. Suddenly, the giant white snake spoke in human language, causing Lin Ling's heart to tremble violently. On top of the giant white snake's head, a figure in white clothes slowly floated out. This person was connected with the white snake, and his long white hair was scattered. This kind of white did not have any luster, as if it was a sickly white. Moreover, this person looked like a man. His face was also very pale, the kind of sickly pale. At this moment, he was smiling at Lin Ling. Lin Ling instantly guessed that this man was actually the white snake. It is said that in the ancient dragon wasteland, the God-Slayer Alliance is the most prosperous. The speed of their growth is monstrous. However,
There is always a mastermind behind the God Slayer alliance. Even martial god realm old monsters are extremely respectful to this mastermind. This caused everyone to be curious as to who this God Slayer alliance's mastermind was. However, I never expected that it would be a martial ancestor realm junior. The man smiled. May I know who senior is? You are actually so curious about our God Slayer alliance. Lin Ling suppressed his surprise and smiled in a relaxed manner. However, in the depths of his heart, he had already prepared various powerful methods. He had even prepared the 5 flags to kill martial gods. If the other party wanted to harm him, he would fight to the death. I heard that the first and second treasures of the divine treasure category had been exchanged by someone. The entire ancient dragon wasteland has been curious as to who bought these treasures. However, I reckon that it should be you. Little guy, you are really amazing. You dare to book the entire god store. Even among the 10 overlords, not many can do that. The white-haired man seemed to know what Lin Ling was thinking and smiled again. Lin Ling's heart thumped violently, but he still smiled and said, "Everything is just your guess. Instead of guessing, why don't we test it with action?" The white-haired man immediately replied, and a terrifying aura filled the air. It seemed that he was not at the middle stage of the martial god realm, but more like a late stage of the martial god realm. Lin Ling sensed the terrifying pressure coming at him, and he found it difficult to breathe. However, he was now full of treasures and had many trump cards. He dared to take a gamble and see how powerful this late-stage martial god realm expert was. However, very quickly, the white-haired man's aura suddenly disappeared again. He said helplessly, "In the end, I still didn't dare to gamble. Because the first and second treasures in the divine weapon category, not to mention killing me, even the 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures have a chance of killing them. Therefore I lost." Hearing this, Lin Ling felt relieved. However, he still smiled and said, "In fact, I also did not want to take the gamble. Because even if I could kill you, you could also kill me before you died. Therefore, this is just a situation where both sides suffer." Haha, as expected of someone who can become a leader. You have foresight. The white-haired man suddenly laughed, and his laughter was full of admiration. Then, he looked at Lin Ling from head to toe and said, "Are you interested in joining us?" "You?" Lin Ling asked. "One of the 10 overlords, the founding alliance. I am one of the 9 prefectures' 10 evils, the serpent tribe." The white-haired man laughed proudly and said boldly. Chapter 3904. Senior Lu Chen. As of now, Lin Ling knew quite a few of the 9 continents' vicious 10. Immortal Temple, Creation Alliance, Tomb Guardian Race, Resting Place of Heroic Spirits, Ancient Demon Race, Great Devil Sect, and Tin Ghost Race. Who would have thought that another one of the 9 prefectures' 10 evils would surface? As for the strength of the Serpent Clan, Lin Ling had no doubt about it. However, if Lin Ling joined, wouldn't he be controlled by others? This was not what Lin Ling wanted to see. "Senior, what if I refuse?" Thinking of this, Lin Ling relaxed and smiled. The white-haired man sized up Lin Ling and immediately rubbed his nose and said, "This joke isn't funny. If you refuse, you'll be forcing us into a dead end. That's not good. How about this? We'll form an alliance and split the loot 50-50. This is my last concession." He obviously knew that Lin Ling had a special method to harvest the golden fleece flower. In fact, he knew what the method was because he had just swam out from the depths of the earth and possessed the ability to walk freely on the earth. However, compared to Lin Ling's little Kunlun, he was still incomparable. After all, little Kunlun was a plant. It could take root and sprout, quickly occupying this region. Its speed of collection was 100 times faster than the white-haired man. That's impossible. We can only split it 30-70. Moreover, this 30 is split with my subordinates. Lin Ling stubbornly shook his head. "Little guy, you're really greedy. Do you want money but not your life? 46. This is my final concession." Hearing Lin Ling's stingy words, the white-haired man was angered to death. He had never seen such a stingy brat. One had to know that he was one of the 9 states' 10 evils. If it was in the past, he would have slapped anyone who dared to bargain with him to death. 370. That's my bottom line. Moreover, it won't be long before 3 million people enter this place. I think most of those people aren't from your alliance, so you want to use this period of time to collect golden fleece flower like crazy, right? Lin Ling suddenly thought of something and said with a faint smile. The 9 Prefectures 10 Evils was an extremely mysterious organization in the universal void. Naturally, the gods would not give them many slots. Therefore, Lin Ling guessed that most of the slots would be taken by the strongest of the final world. Although I know that you are not afraid of them in terms of strength, this is a competition of harvesting golden fleece flowers. Having more people will definitely give you an advantage. So, if you don't agree to my request now, you might get less in the future. Lin Ling saw the corners of the white-haired man's eyes twitching. He immediately knew that he had guessed correctly, so he said again, "You're too cunning." The white-haired man immediately gnashed his teeth when he heard this, but he laughed coldly as well. "Presently, besides us, the other overlords amongst the 10 overlords haven't paid attention to you. Otherwise, you wouldn't be able to keep the gold helm fleece flower no matter how many you have. Moreover, I heard that someone amongst those 3 million people has found a similar method as you. So, if you still refuse to cooperate, then you probably won't be able to obtain a gold helm fleece flower once those 3 million people enter." Lin Ling's heart shuddered when he heard this. Someone has found out about his method? Lin Ling immediately fell into deep thought. However, he felt that it was normal. There were countless old monsters here, so it was only natural that they would find a solution. That's true, but I still have a few days. It's enough time for me to harvest the gold helm fleece flower I need. Lin Ling shook his head and smiled at the white-haired man. Son of a bitch. Have you even cultivated for 10,000 years? I've cultivated for 100,000 years. I'm your senior. Can't you give me some face? What a cunning kid. 40 and 60. You take 40 and I take 60. Isn't that enough? Since you're eating meat, you should at least give me some soup. The white-haired man was furious. If it weren't for the treasures in Lin Ling's hands, he would have tortured Lin Ling into confessing. Then, he realized why Lin Ling had bought the divine weapons instead of the rare treasures. This kid clearly had foresight. He was guarding himself against the martial god realm experts who could threaten him. I'm telling you, 40 and 60, you can't go back. If you don't agree, we'll go our separate ways. Finally, the white-haired man shouted angrily. Moreover, don't think that you can keep your gold helm fleece flower by dragging me to the grave with you. I'm telling you, the founding alliance is not only composed of the Serpent Clan. We have a leader. If I die, you can give all your gold helm fleece flower to him. I don't want any of them. Hee hee, you're so kind? Lin Ling sneered at the white-haired man. Then you can have a try. Let's fight. Rumble. The huge ancient snake grew like a vine, and a terrifying aura covered the sky and earth. It surged toward Lin Ling with a strong murderous intent. Seeing this, Lin Ling's eyes became serious. He held the flags tightly in his hands. Obviously, he didn't expect that the white-haired man would really risk his life. If he died together with him, his gold helm fleece flower would be taken by the other leader. I know you don't believe me. Then I'll show you again. Come out, old Lu. The ancient serpent spoke in human language. Its voice was earth-shattering. Obviously, it was going to risk its life. It didn't believe that an old monster like it would be afraid of a young boy. Rumble. In a faraway place, a huge evil fish with 9 lanterns appeared. It swam in the heaven and earth as if it was swimming in the sea. This evil fish was as big as an island. There were 9 ancient lanterns hanging in front of the fish's head. They were dazzling, and the huge fish's sharp teeth were flashing, causing others to tremble in fear. As for the enormous vicious fish, a carefree and unruly man stood there with his hands behind his back, and beside him was a woman that was as beautiful as a celestial maiden. Do you believe me now? Do you think I'm lying to you? Come on, fight with your life. If you and I die, your gold helm fleece flower will belong to that leader. Seeing the newcomer, the ancient serpent roared and sneered. Was he afraid? He wanted to ask the kid if he was afraid. Was he going to fight with him? When he came out to roam the 9 states, that kid was still drinking milk. However, Lin Ling wasn't afraid at all. Instead, he looked at the newcomer in disbelief. Suddenly, he laughed loudly. Senior Lu. The newcomer was the 9 Lanterns fish, Lu Chen, leader of the Creation Alliance. Lin Ling. The newcomer was stunned. The woman beside him smiled excitedly. Little benefactor? She was Lu Chen's wife, White Fox. In the past, she was saved by Lin Ling. Because of that, Lu Chen had been helping Lin Ling. However, it wasn't just Lu Chen who was stunned. Even the ancient serpent was stunned. Both of them were shocked. The white serpent was shocked that Lin Ling knew Lu Chen. Lu Chen was shocked that Lin Ling would appear here. Then he frowned and looked at the white serpent. Old Gu, what do you mean? Are you going to attack my friend? Old Lu, he's your friend. You must be joking. Chapter 3905. Two Alliances. You think I'm joking? When we formed the alliance, we already said that we can't touch our friends. Now, aren't you violating the alliance agreement? Lu Chen immediately said with a cold expression. Fuck, I've been wronged. How would I know that he's your friend? Also, do you know who he is? The white-haired man immediately shouted, feeling extremely aggrieved. Hearing this, Lu Chen was puzzled because he had always been curious as to why Lin Ling would appear here. He's the leader behind the scenes of the God Slayer Alliance that you keep praising. Seeing that Lu Chen was also confused, the white-haired man screamed again. What? This time, it was Lu Chen's turn to be dumbfounded. Lin Ling was the mastermind behind the gods of destruction? Then, he led a group of experts to rise in the ancient dragon wasteland? Heavens! When did this little guy grow to such a level? Lin Ling, tell me this isn't true. I really don't believe it. Then, Lu Chen looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Hearing this, Lin Ling smiled bitterly and nodded. Ah, you really are. Lu Chen slapped his forehead. He was so shocked that his jaw almost dropped to the ground. It's good that he's your friend. What should we do now? You handle it. The white-haired man had an extreme headache as well. Now, he was clearly unable to make a move. Since we're friends, let's split it 40 to 60. How about we form an alliance? Seeing that one of the 10 overlords was Senior Lu Chen, Lin Ling decided to compromise. All right, 46 it is. Of course, Lu Chen agreed. He didn't care even if it was 30/70ths. However, the founding alliance belonged to the 9 provinces Fierce 10 Alliance. Therefore, he had to consider the feelings of the other side. If I had known it would be so straightforward, I wouldn't have fucking come. 46, 46. Haha, little guy, we are allies now. Seeing that Lin Ling had finally relented, the white-haired man first scolded jokingly, then said with a smile. Next, the Creation Alliance also mobilized all the experts. In this prairie, dark clouds rolled, a large number of experts arrived. All of them were martial god realm experts. The number of people had reached more than 5,000. Over 5,000 martial gods. No wonder they could become the 10 overlords. This was a real big shot. Lin Ling, is that you? Many people in the Creation Alliance knew Lin Ling, and they immediately laughed. Upon seeing those old monsters, Lin Ling hurriedly greeted them. Then, he pondered for a moment and immediately summoned all the members of the God Slayer Alliance. Brother Lu Chen, I'll show you my strength too. Facing Senior Lu Chen, Lin Ling clearly wanted to compete. After all, Senior Lu Chen had watched Lin Ling grow up. Now, Lin Ling wanted to let Senior Lu Chen know how strong he was. Did the leader call us? Furthermore, it's an extremely urgent matter. Assemble, all of you assemble. Once Lin Ling's order was given, it was like a stone that caused 1,000 ripples. The outermost area of the prairie was in turmoil. Thousands of people rushed toward the prairie, and their speed was very fast, as if they were afraid that something had happened to Lin Ling. Leader, those desolate trees are about to die. Next, there will be a few golden fleece flowers. Why don't we wait a little longer? I'll wait for your mother. Don't. Immediately assemble. Okay. On the other side, a large number of experts from the God Slayer Alliance rushed toward the prairie, even giving up on the golden fleece flowers that were about to fall into their hands. Come, you are the Che-Chi Alliance of the 100 Leagues. I think you're just don't force me. If I call my brothers, you'll only be devoured. At the same time, in another direction, the 9th God Eye and other experts were looking at the enormous 100 Leagues. The other party was very afraid of the 9th God Eye and had already planned to retreat. This was because they had also heard of the God Slayer Alliance's reputation. Not only were they the giants of the 100 Leagues, but they were also the giants of the upper middle tier. However, just as they were about to surrender, the 9th God Eye received Lin Ling's message. Little ones, retreat. Under the stupefied gazes of the alliance, the ninth god Eye and other experts retreated like the receding tide.
I was reckless before. If I have offended you in any way, please forgive me. The ninth god Eye even took the initiative to apologize as he left. The main reason was that he was afraid that the Che-Chi alliance would entangle him. Although the ninth god Eye was not afraid of him, he was afraid that something would happen to Lin Ling. Moreover, this was an extremely urgent order. Every member of the God Slayer Alliance had such a token in their hands. Once this token was issued, they would come over thousands of mountains and rivers to meet. It was extremely urgent, and they couldn't even be a moment late. Nothing could compare to Lin Ling's order. They actually apologized? Leader, I don't understand. They clearly have a better chance of winning. I don't understand either. I almost knelt down and begged for mercy. The members of the alliance were undoubtedly dumbfounded. Only the leader narrowed his eyes. That old man is also one of the leaders, but he looked so anxious. It's clear that someone is ordering them to leave immediately. What? Isn't that old man already a leader? Someone can order him around? Everyone was dumbfounded once again. Legend has it that the God Slayer Alliance has a leader behind the scenes. It seems that the legend is most likely true. The leader said word by word. His words caused everyone to gasp. To be able to summon so many leaders of the God Slayer Alliance, the leader behind the scenes was too domineering. At the same time, 5,000 people had gathered on the prairie. However, they did not stop there. Gradually, 8,000 people arrived. In the end, the number of people reached almost 20,000. The sky was filled with experts. They were like rolling dark clouds, causing the earth to tremble. With one order, thousands of people came to meet. Domineering. The members of the God Slayer Alliance were dumbfounded. They also saw that the 20,000 people were not weak. Many of them were half-step to martial god realm experts, and there was no lack of martial god realm experts. Lin Ling, these are your people. Lu Chen stared into the distance and gasped. He then looked at Lin Ling from head to toe as if he was trying to see through him. He had never expected that after not seeing Lin Ling for so many years, this kid would become a big shot. Damn! Rumor has it that the God Slayer Alliance has 5,000 elites, right? How come there are almost 20,000 of them? The white-haired man's eyes twitched violently. He then looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. Now, he finally knew how terrifying this kid was. The speed at which this little brat pulled up the mountain was simply comparable to a plague. Hee hee. Lin Ling laughed. Although the God Slayer Alliance's legend was spread everywhere in the ancient dragon wasteland, in reality, the God Slayer Alliance rarely displayed their full strength. This was because Lin Ling's goal was to obtain wealth, not to compete with others. If he could avoid a fight, he would resolutely avoid it. They would only fight if it affected the harvest of the golden fleece flower. This is not all. Dragon Demon, come out. Chapter 3906. To become one of the 10 overlords. Since both sides were allies, Lin Ling did not intend to hide anything. Moreover, Senior Lu Chen was Lin Ling's good friend. Lin Ling would not hide anything from him. Wow, fuck, you're hiding some guards, and they're all half-step martial gods. Seeing the countless dragon demons appear, the white-haired man was once again tongue-tied. Lu Chen shook his head helplessly and smiled bitterly. I think you can become one of the JoJo's 10 evils. Leader. While they were still in shock, everyone else had arrived. They were all clad in divine armor, and their battle prowess was ferocious. Many of them had even exchanged for divine arts. Although their cultivation levels were not high, their strength was definitely not to be underestimated. As soon as they were addressed as leader, the Great Prairie was immediately shaken. It's all right. I gathered you here because I have good news to tell you. Currently, we have formed an alliance with the 10 overlords, the Founding Alliance. These two are the leaders of the Founding Alliance. Lin Ling calmly looked at Chen Ting and the others as he spoke. His words also gave them a fright. The 10 overlords had formed an alliance? Many people felt like they were dreaming because they had never thought that they would be able to form an alliance with the 10 overlords in their lifetime. Then, they all laughed excitedly. Sure enough, following leader Lin Ling was the true way to accomplish great things. Haha, from today onwards, we are allies. When Lu Chen saw Lin Ling's God Slayer Alliance, he laughed loudly. Allies?
Chen Ting, the ninth god Ai, and the others immediately laughed. Without a doubt, after the God Slayer Alliance formed an alliance with the 10 overlords, unless the other party was one of the 10 overlords, no one would be able to resist them. Leader, among the 100 alliances, 5 alliances have joined forces to eradicate the God Slayer Alliance. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from afar. Hearing this, everyone laughed. 5 of the 100 alliances working together? Do you want to die? Lin Ling, this is our alliance's first battle. Tell me, how should we deal with it? Lu Chen immediately smiled at Lin Ling. Destroy them. Lin Ling's gaze swept across the crowd as he nodded his head boldly. Destroy them. Everyone roared loudly when they saw that Lin Ling had agreed. Lu Chen and the white-haired man glanced at each other before they took the lead and walked out of the grassland. At the same time they said indifferently, "This is our first alliance, so let us take the lead." The members of the God Slayer Alliance felt their blood boil when they heard that. Nearly 20,000 people marched out of the Great Prairie in a grandiose manner. That aura was terrifying. Heaven and earth shook, and all of the dark clouds were shattered. At this moment, outside the Great Prairie, a large number of elite experts had arrived. They were the experts of the Great Five Alliance. Haha, I've heard that the God Slayer Alliance is in the Great Prairie. They only have 5,000 elites. Compared to our Great Five Alliance, they are nothing. I've also heard that the God Slayer Alliance has a leader behind the scenes. Today I want to see if that leader has 3 heads and 6 arms. The leaders of the Great Five Alliance spoke proudly, as though they had already won the battle. Someone even waved his hand and said, "Little ones, go and challenge them." Yes, boss. The expert who had been assigned this task was undoubtedly very excited and proud. He was representing the Great Five Alliance to challenge them. When he left this place in the future, he could use this opportunity to brag about it for the rest of his life. However, just as he approached the Great Prairie, the rolling dark clouds in front of him had already spread over. That terrifying gale was like an invisible blade that cut off several strands of his hair. Upon closer inspection, those weren't dark clouds but countless experts. Boss, it seems like I don't need to challenge them anymore. They are already here. That expert was tongue-tied as he shouted. His words caused the members of the Great Five Alliance to be somewhat startled. However, when they looked into the distance, all of them were like ducks that had been grabbed by the neck. Old Tai, I don't know how to count, but no matter how I look, there are more than 5,000 elites over there. Could it be that my eyes are playing tricks on me? Playing tricks my ass. There are more than 5,000 elites over there. Damn it, we've been fooled. The God Slayer Alliance has more people than that. What's there to be afraid of? Without 20,000 experts, our Great Five Alliance has nothing to fear. The Great Five Alliance leaders said in a low voice. In reality, they were just trying to boost their morale. However, a sharp-eyed expert dampened his boss's enthusiasm. He said nervously, "Boss, I used my special ability to count just now. Not only are there 20,000 experts over there are more than 20,000 of them." Plop. Those leaders who were standing on the ground were so frightened that they fell to the ground. The growth rate of the God Slayer Alliance was too freakish. People said that a scholar who had been away for 3 days would be looked at with new eyes. However, the God Slayer Alliance had been away for 3 days and was looking at them with wide eyes. What's there to be afraid of? They are just a bunch of motley crew. Who knows? Maybe there are more than 10,000 peak martial ancestor trash over there. We are all elites and can fight against 100, no, 1 against 1,000. A leader seemed to be encouraging himself as he spoke. This also caused everyone's spirits to rise. That's right, the God Slayer Alliance must be putting on an empty front. They were just putting on a strong front and were actually weak. It was useless to rely on numbers. God Slayer Alliance, you're just relying on a bunch of trash to make up the numbers. Do you think we're afraid of you? The expert who was in charge of challenging the God Slayer Alliance shouted arrogantly. However, the large group of experts in the distance did not even bother to say a word. The 2 leaders who were walking at the front were Lu Chen and the other leader. Trash. Lu Chen laughed. It's been a long time since someone called me trash. I remember, that was 90,000 years ago. The white-haired man laughed as well. They took the lead and looked as if they could hold back 10,000 men. Haha, where did this nameless general come from? When the 5 leaders saw this, They immediately laughed disdainfully. However, someone suddenly rubbed his eyes and looked at Lu Chen and the white-haired man. Although they were very curious about the two people's backgrounds, they had seen them before. This was because they had seen the two of them destroy several alliances of the top 100 alliance with their own eyes. Moreover, they did not do anything. It was just a punch. They killed an alliance with one punch. That was how awesome they were. Oh no, they are the 10 overlords. I think they are the founding alliance. When those people came to their senses, they were so frightened that they fell to the ground and sweat poured down like rain. Ah! The 5 leaders had just stood up, but they were so frightened that they fell to the ground again. They did not know what kind of experts were in the founding alliance. However, they knew that an alliance that could become the 10 overlords was definitely not simple. Damn it, who said they were a bunch of trash? How can they be weak? They have more people than us, and they even have the 10 overlords. Compared to this, I'm more angry about the bastard who suggested that we eliminate the God Slayer alliance. The 5 leaders' faces were ashen. They had never expected that the God Slayer alliance would become the 10 overlords without them knowing. At this moment, in the prairie, Lin Ling looked into the distance and smiled. He was not worried about the battle outside. Then, he released little Kunlun and started to collect golden fleece flowers. Chapter 3907. Making a fortune was the priority. Especially with the arrival of 3 million people, who could guarantee that there were no experts among them? Perhaps even the 10 martial gods of the 9 prefectures were here. Waha! There are 300,000 golden fleece flowers in this grassland. 10 hours later, Lin Ling finally harvested all the golden fleece flowers. Lu Chen and the rest had already dealt with the motley crew and were now gathered in the grassland. When they heard Lin Ling's words, they were so shocked that they almost bit their own mouths. 300,000? 10 hours? This was too profitable. The white-haired man was also full of admiration. Because he was a snake, he could enter the ground but could not take root. He had to search everywhere for the golden fleece flowers. Chen Ting, divide all the golden fleece flowers. We will go to the next place immediately. However, Lin Ling knew that now was not the time to be happy. He had to speed up the harvesting. Here, 500,000. This great swamp is a vast expanse of land, and it gave birth to 1 million people. 3 million. After the God Slayer alliance became stronger, there was no doubt that the harvesting area had also increased. Of course, during the harvesting process, Lin Ling and the rest also encountered the 10 overlords. Regarding this, Lin Ling chose to avoid them. Confronting the 10 overlords now was obviously extremely disadvantageous and a waste of time. With regards to this decision, everyone was extremely supportive. It was better to make a fortune silently. Leader, 3 million experts have finally entered the ancient dragon wasteland. As time passed, the great reshuffle of the ancient dragon wasteland had finally arrived. Ignore them and continue to dig. Before they find us, we have to make as much money as possible. Lin Ling ignored this and continued to dig. Lu Chen and the other 2 leaders were also extremely excited. Lin Ling, how much? Here, there are 5 million golden fleece flowers. Haha, even if 3 million of them entered, there won't be many golden fleece flowers left for them. The entire God Slayer alliance was in high spirits. However, as the days passed, the number of experts in the ancient dragon wasteland was as high as the clouds. Especially after the Great Reshuffle, the 100 Great Alliance was absorbed by the 10 overlords. This was because, with 3 million experts here, who would dare to go against them unless they were at the level of the martial gods? Lin Ling, this is bad. The 100 Great Alliance has completely collapsed. Everyone has been absorbed by the 10 overlords. All that's left are a few scattered soldiers. However, it's only a matter of time before they're all devoured. On this day, Lu Chen also informed Lin Ling of the news he had received. Lin Ling's expression turned serious. Speed up, race against time. Lin Ling still didn't allow the God Slayer alliance to clash head-on with those overlords. Instead, he was frantically harvesting. In the entire vast ancient dragon wasteland, Lin Ling almost scraped the ground 3 feet deep. Leader, there are experts from Storm Tower ahead. The God Slayer alliance was in charge of protecting Lin Ling. Meanwhile, Chen Ting had also sent him a message. Fengyun Tower, one of the 10 overlords. However, they were all new overlords, formed by the strongest experts of the 36 academies. Give up on the golden fleece flowers over there. Lin Ling immediately made a decision. Give up. After receiving the order, all the leaders were unwilling to give up. Currently, they weren't afraid of Fengyun Tower. Whatever the leader says, we'll give up. However, Chen Ting and the other leaders also issued a death order. The God Slayer Alliance immediately headed in another direction. Lin Ling then started harvesting. Instantly, he received a shocking news. There were a total of 8 million golden fleece flowers in this area. We're rich, we're rich. Lin Ling, hurry up. I've received news that the Heaven Alliance and the True Legacy Alliance have formed an alliance and are going to unite the ancient dragon wasteland. The white-haired man came from afar and brought back another shocking news. The ancient dragon wasteland was constantly changing. The situation was fiery and deep. For the sake of God's shop, everyone was going all out. Obviously, everyone knew that although there were many golden fleece flowers, their numbers were limited. If they didn't plunder now, when would they plunder? Most importantly, the treasures in God's shop were limited. Whoever gathered the golden fleece flowers first would be able to obtain the God's treasure. As for those who were slow, even if they had gathered enough golden fleece flowers, the treasures would have been bought by others. It would be useless to keep the golden fleece flowers. The Heaven Alliance and the True Legacy Alliance have formed an alliance. This news undoubtedly shocked Lin Ling, yes. Currently, their alliance is the strongest among the 10 overlords. The other overlords have to take a detour when they see them. What's strange is that after the Heaven Alliance and the True Legacy Alliance formed an alliance, they actually didn't join forces to eliminate the other overlords. The white-haired man said in a rare serious tone. Lin Ling immediately pondered. The True Legacy Alliance was a powerful alliance formed by the experts of the True Legacy Alliance. It was because they had the method to harvest the golden fleece flowers. No wonder the Heaven Alliance had formed an alliance with them. I reckon that they also know that time is getting more and more critical. That's why they didn't eliminate the other overlords. Because attacking the other overlords would definitely waste a lot of time and would instead benefit others. Lin Ling also made some guesses. That's true. However, our God Slayer Alliance and the Creation Alliance have already disappeared from the ancient dragon wasteland. The 10 overlords thought that we had given up. We can take this opportunity to make a fortune silently. Even if the sky falls, the other overlords will hold it up. Lu Chen said immediately. Currently, as long as the God Slayer Alliance encounter the experts of the 10 overlords, they would immediately abandon the golden fleece flowers in their hands and retreat to other places. The advantage of this was that they didn't attract the attention of the 10 overlords. However, they would only lose a few golden fleece flowers. After all, if the 10 overlords knew that the God Slayer Alliance was the first to know the method to harvest the golden fleece flowers, they would probably all target the God Slayer Alliance. This would also waste a lot of Lin Ling's time. After all, the current Lin Ling could harvest tens of thousands of golden fleece flowers in a breath's time. Leader, there are people from the True Legacy Alliance approaching. While they were racing against time, a leader passed on the information. How long will it take? Upon hearing this, Lin Ling's face turned solemn. After 3 million people had arrived, the ancient dragon wasteland would be filled with people everywhere. About 2 hours or so. All right, after 1 hour, we will retreat. Leave the rest of the golden fleece flowers behind. Lin Ling immediately made a decision. After 1 hour, he would bring everyone from the God Slayer Alliance and leave this ancient land. After 1 hour, a large number of experts also arrived. It was the combination of the Heaven Alliance and the True Legacy Alliance. There were more than 100,000 people, and all of them were experts. Haha, Princess Tian, you have asked your master to find the method to harvest the golden fleece flowers. This time, you have done a great service. Within the Heaven Alliance, a young man with a high status smiled as he looked at the people from the True Legacy Alliance. He was Duan Wuhan. On the True Legacy Alliance's side, the current leader of the team was Princess Tian. She faintly smiled, waved her lily-white hand, and issued an order. Those world spiritists of the True Legacy Alliance immediately set up the Great Divine Formation. Tens of thousands of people started working swiftly. Chapter 3908. A Harvest of 10 Million. It's really amazing. The land under this wasteland is a world of its own. After we enter, we immediately feel like a stone sinking into the sea. However, Miaoshen's true inheritance has a god's boundary array to collect the golden fleece flowers in the deepest part of the earth. I'm afraid these methods are the methods of the dragon-patterned supreme boundary master. Duan Wuhan looked at the people of the True Inheritance Alliance with envy in his eyes. If they had known this method, they would not have wasted time fighting with the barren trees. Princess Tian. Here are 18,320. Heavenly Princess. Here are 36,073. After a long time, the boundary masters reported their results. So little? Princess Tian looked at all the harvests and could not help but feel disappointed. Because there were only a total of more than 100,000 golden fleece flowers. Such a number was a lot for an individual, but for an alliance, it was a drop in the bucket. So little? Duan Wuhan frowned because according to his estimation, there should be 1 million golden fleece flowers under this land. Could it be that someone beat us to it and we are eating the soup they left behind? Duan Wuhan suddenly guessed and immediately felt unhappy. Haha, you underestimate Miaoshen's true inheritance. In today's final world, besides us, who has the ability to collect such a large area? Don't worry, we just happened to come across a place with fewer golden fleece flowers. The next place will definitely collect 1 million golden fleece flowers. Princess Tian was also in a bad mood, but she quickly smiled confidently. At this moment, Lin Ling and the others had already reached the other side and began to collect crazily. The spies of the God Slayer Alliance also sent back the news that the True Inheritance Alliance had only harvested a little more than 100,000 golden fleece flowers. This made Lin Ling and the others laugh. The Heaven Alliance followed behind the God Slayer Alliance, so how much could their harvest be? Ignore them, let's continue to collect. Then, Lin Ling got busy again. Before he knew it, the number of golden fleece flower he owned had reached more than 30 million. Moreover, he was always on the lookout for rare treasures so that the treasures he had his eyes on would not be taken away by others. Fortunately, there were a lot of golden fleece flower in the rare treasures category. So far, people were only buying the cheaper rare treasures. Lin Ling, over here. On this day, the giant ghost led Lin Ling and the others to a new area. This was the Seismic Mountains, and the weight here had reached the level of 5,000 worlds. Teske, I found so many places for you. This place has the strongest willpower. I estimate that the number of golden fleece flower here is astonishing. As soon as they arrived at the Seismic Mountain range, the giant ghost said excitedly. Really? Lin Ling also became excited. Could it be 10 million? Lin Ling hadn't harvested 10 million golden fleece flower in one go yet. Most of the time, he had harvested 1 million golden fleece flower. I think there is. The giant ghost circled around Lin Ling a few times and said fiercely. I'm rich. Lin Ling felt as if he had been injected with chicken blood as he immediately activated Little Kunlun. Rumble. The current Lil Kunlun was no longer the same as before. This was because Lin Ling had sent his men to the Divine Store and bought many treasures that were suitable for Lil Kunlun. Currently, Lil Kunlun's strength was comparable to the martial god realm. It even possessed the power to seal the gift and was much more powerful than an ordinary martial god realm cultivator. The ground began to shake. A vine that was as tall as a human grew on the ground. However, under the ground, it had become a primeval forest. The area had reached millions of miles wide. Countless black plants were growing and intertwining. Not to mention the golden fleece flower, even the barren trees and other things that were hidden underground were immediately killed. The vines that Little Kunlun left on the ground also shook and reported back. There were indeed many golden fleece flower in the ground. Malevolent ghost jellyfish. Lin Ling didn't waste any time and immediately released the malevolent ghost jellyfish. Countless jellyfish swam down the vines and began to crazily plunder the golden fleece flower. While Lin Ling was harvesting, on the other side of God's shop's tower, it was packed with people every day. It was as if the treasures in God's shop didn't cost money. Everyone came to buy them. However, in reality, these people were all from the 10 overlords. They had secretly taken over God's shop. They would know exactly who came to buy the treasures. Of course, it was also because of this reason that the overlords didn't want others to see through them. This led to many people coming to make fake purchases. They were just entering God's shop to take a look. This was also a smoke screen. Brother, do you have a golden fleece flower? We will buy it with royal crystals. 10 billion for one.
We will buy as much as you have.
On the road leading to God's shop, there were many mysterious martial artists buying golden fleece flower.
Hee, I will pay 11 billion for one golden fleece flower. Do you have it?
However, no one was stupid enough to hand over the golden fleece flower.
After all, royal crystals could be found slowly.
However, God's shop was not.
Hee.
Seeing that the other party wasn't fooled, those people who were buying golden fleece flower laughed and turned to ask others.
Do you think we are idiots?
Those people who were talking just now laughed and then went to God's shop.
There are many things to buy this time.
The leader said that the big treasures should be bought at the last time. Some of the treasures that are necessary should be bought now.
These people walked along the platform.
After passing through the stairs, they finally entered a big hall. There were many people in the hall.
Many people seemed to be buying treasures, but in fact, it was just a smoke screen.
This also caused the people from various forces to be very confused. Look, those people from the Death Alliance.
Damn, they just came to buy treasures yesterday. Today, they are here again.
Do they have so many golden fleece flower?
Hee, they definitely don't have any.
They are hiding the truth so that the other overlords can't guess their gains. After all, if the other overlords knew that the Death Alliance had a lot of gains, they might join forces to rob them.
Yes, but the overlords on our side also think so.
Whispers sounded quietly.
Currently, the 10 overlords were secretly opposing each other.
Each overlord wanted to devour the other's golden fleece flower. Those people who were listening to the whispers in the hall just now smiled faintly. They quietly came to the front of the shop and said with a smile,
"Senior, we are here to buy things."
In the shop, the white-haired old man said in an extremely bad mood, "What do you want to buy?"
Obviously, there were too many people who were trying to trick him.
As a result, his patience was exhausted. If it weren't for the god's order, he would have closed the shop and told those who didn't buy anything but asked the price to get lost.
Chapter 3909. Stocking. Most of the treasures they wanted to buy were used to recover realm energy.
There were also some fruits that could increase one's cultivation level. However, there were a lot of them. This caused the old man's expression to become even more unsightly.
These people were definitely here to set off a smoke bomb.
After all, the golden fleece flowers required for those treasures were extremely expensive.
How could this group of people be able to take them out?
Do you have any?
After those people finished speaking, they immediately laughed.
Yes, but do you have enough golden fleece flowers?
The old man's voice became gloomy.
He was on the verge of exploding. However, at this moment, the person in the lead took out his jade token and placed it on the table. The old man frowned slightly, and his expression couldn't help but change slightly after he inspected it carefully. Because there were numerous gold fleece flowers within it, and there were over 1 million of them. This meant that these people weren't here to set off a smoke bomb.
All right, wait a moment. I'll give you the treasures you need immediately. The old man's mood instantly improved. He took out all the treasures in the store and placed them into the jade tablet.
Thank you.
The group of people instantly laughed. They didn't check and directly turned to leave.
Because they knew that this god's store was opened by a god.
Naturally, there wouldn't be any shortfalls. Finally, it's not those people who came to cause trouble.
I hope these treasures will be sold quickly so that I can complete my task. Seeing that group of people leave, the old man smiled and said,
Currently, 2/3 of the treasures in the god's store had been bought.
The remaining treasures were all precious. For example, the first and second categories were still unbought. However, the god had orders. Only when the fifth and fourth categories were bought out would the god's store be completely closed. Therefore, he still had to wait patiently for now. Senior, we're here to buy things. At this moment, a few more people came to the front of the store and spoke with smiles on their faces. The old man had come into contact with people who were sincere in buying things, so he wasn't so difficult to talk to this group of people. However, he quickly realized that this group of people was here to set off a smoke bomb. Because the things they wanted were all priceless treasures.
How could this group of people be able to afford such a price?
Scram! It wasn't easy for me to come across people who were sincere in buying things. It made my mood improve, but now I've encountered you bunch of troublemakers.
In the end, the old man roared furiously. Senior, please calm down. We'll leave right away.
The group of people were not afraid of the old man's anger.
After smiling,
They immediately left. Obviously, they were used to the old man's anger because they often came here to create a smokescreen. However, after the group of people left the store, they immediately frowned. That senior said that someone bought a treasure? That's strange. Currently, the various overlords are all preparing for the final golden fleece flower. It has been a long time since anyone bought treasures, especially the first 3 types of treasures. Should I inform the leader? Okay, you go and inform them. I'll follow them. That group of people immediately rushed out of the main hall and looked outside. They saw that in the distance of the platform, more than 10 figures were leaving along the steps. It must be that group of people. The leader has sent a mission. Follow them immediately. Next, that group of people quietly followed the group in front of them. Xianxia, I sense that someone is following us. However, that group of people were not weaklings. Each of them had a divine artifact on them and cultivated powerful theology. Therefore, they were able to detect it immediately. Fuck those bastards. The leader immediately scolded. However, the person beside him frowned and asked, "What should we do now? We can't bring them over. Otherwise, we will disturb the leader's gathering." Yes. Although we are not afraid of them now, the ancient dragon wasteland is in deep trouble. If the God Slayer alliance is entangled with the 10 overlords, it will be difficult to gather any more treasures. Moreover, after 3 million people enter, the Heaven Alliance of the 10 overlords will be very powerful. If they target us, it will be difficult for us to fight them. Yes. Those people continued to speak. The leader's eyes were filled with disarray and he was hesitant. Luo Wuchang, Zhuang Yanming, Zhong Jin, we will lure them away. Wu Jiang, you and the rest of the people sneak back and give the treasures to the leader. Yes. This is not good. How about I go and lure them away? Yes. All right, let's stop talking nonsense. That group of people might just be a small alliance. You guys go first, and after we've dealt with them, we'll find you guys. Yes. Okay, you must be careful. Yes. Finally, the 2 groups of people quietly separated. One group of people sneaked into the ground with the help of a divine weapon and quickly moved forward. The other group of people continued to move forward slowly, attracting the attention of those who were following them. These people don't seem to be very strong. Attack! Attack! After that, the group of people who were following them finally surfaced and blocked the path of Xianxia and the rest. Which alliance are you from? Why do you have so many golden fleece flower? I will give you a chance. Tell us your alliance and I will let you join us. Attack! After blocking Xianxia and the rest, a one-eyed man smiled faintly. Hee, may I know which alliance you are from? Attack! Xianxia and the rest did not attack but asked about the other party's background. Listen carefully, kid. We are from Fengyun Tower. Attack! The one-eyed man in the lead said with a proud smile. Fengyun Tower, one of the 10 overlords, used to be the overlord with the most people. However, the number of people in this alliance had been greatly surpassed by the Heaven Alliance. When Xianxia and the rest first arrived, Fengyun Tower almost wanted to recruit them. So you are from Fengyun Tower. Attack! Xianxia's lips curled up. He knew that things were going to be troublesome. After all, if it was a small alliance, it would be easy for him to destroy it. However, if it was Fengyun Tower, it would be difficult. This alliance had a large number of people. If there was a clash, it would definitely shake the ancient dragon wasteland. At that time, the God Slayer alliance would also surface. So what do you think? The one-eyed man spread out his hands. Although his words sounded polite, there was a hint of authority that could not be resisted. Since it is Fengyun Tower, we will accept it. Xianxia first smiled. After he finished speaking, he immediately unleashed his strength. Close to 2,000 world speed. He instantly reached the one-eyed man and slashed out with the tiger god's giant saber. 90% of ancestors' power. Rumble. The one-eyed man's face changed drastically and he frantically retreated. However, one of his arms was still cut off. Looking at the rest, they were no match for Xianxia and the rest and were killed one by one. Divine weapon. Everyone has a divine weapon. Sir, that is the mountain-shattering tyrannical skill. It costs 20,000 golden fleece flower and they actually bought it. Unless they are the leaders of some alliance, How can they have so many golden fleece flower? Kill! Kill! Chapter 39:10. At the edge of the ancient dragon desolate land. Stop them! Kill! The one-eyed man held his broken arm and roared. He then rushed into the encirclement and ran away. Damn it! He ran away! Kill! Tianao and the rest immediately looked pale. They then killed the group of people in front of them and disappeared on the spot. In the distance, the one-eyed man was running wildly. Blood was dripping from his shoulder. Leader, this is bad. That group of people is very powerful. Kill! At the same time, he sent a message back to Fengyun Tower. You have a half-step to martial god in your group. How can you not be a match for them? Kill! A voice came from the other side. They are not weak. They have many divine weapons and divine skills. I guess they are the leaders of the alliance. This is the scene that I have just recorded. Leader, look. Tisk. TSK, they're really rich. If they're the big leaders, then that's normal. What I'm most afraid of is that they're not the big leaders, which means that their alliance is not to be underestimated. Wait, I have an impression of those people. You know that I cultivate the 9 formless grand magic, so my memory is the most profound. I've seen people before. I've heard of people before. I'm sure I've seen them before. That's right. That's right, it was 2 months ago. It's that group of newcomers. Does this say? Amazing. The ancient dragon wasteland is a place where the weak are eliminated. This group of people has actually grown to this level. I'm sure that they definitely have a lot of golden fleece flower. Now, which direction did they run to? Chase, we must find their headquarters. Kill. Leader, they are running to the north of the poison dragon forest. All right. Inform the people over there to surround and capture them. Hee. Although our Fengyun Tower doesn't have the most people, we are still ranked second among the 10 overlords. Our people are everywhere. Let's see how they can escape. Kill. After the conversation, Fengyun Tower's attention fell on Tianao and the rest. At that moment, Tianao and the rest were running wildly. Luo Wuchang was holding a whistle in his mouth. It was a divine weapon. When he blew it gently, there was a fluctuation in front of him. A large number of small objects flew back at the speed of 3,000 miles. When they landed on Luo Wuchang's body, he took a closer look and found that they were actually bees. Obviously, they were used to scout the way. After Luo Wuchang investigated a bit, he immediately said, Tianao, not good. Fengyun Lu is targeting us. Nearby, a large number of people are chasing us. Immediately turn around and don't follow Wu Jiang. Don't alert the Fengyun Tower to the God Slayer Alliance. Boss is currently harvesting and has reached a critical moment. Don't disturb him. Good. The few of them ran madly through the forest, but as soon as they disappeared, a large number of people immediately chased after them. Bastard, you sure run fast. When we catch up to you, we'll definitely break your legs. Chase. After those people appeared, they immediately cursed angrily. The leader also had a divine weapon and was very strong. He was an expert on the heavenly stairway and was one of the new students of the 36th college. He was ranked 5th and was called Gu Xingba. He was also one of the leaders of Fengyun Tower. As one of the overlords, Fengyun Tower had many leaders. Of course, the current 10 overlords each had as many experts as there were clouds in the sky, and there were many leaders. On the other side, when Wu Jiang returned to the area where the God Slayer Alliance was located, Chen Ting and the rest immediately surrounded him. Chen Ting frowned and asked, Where are Tianao and the rest? Wu Jiang immediately told them what had happened. Fengyun Tower? Damn it, how dare they challenge the God Slayer Alliance? After hearing this, Chen Wu was immediately enraged. Currently, the God Slayer Alliance was not afraid of Fengyun Tower. It could be said that other than the Heaven Alliance, the God Slayer Alliance was not afraid of any other overlords. However, the God Slayer Alliance was different from the other overlords. The God Slayer Alliance was crazily harvesting at the last moment and did not want to cause any trouble. Should we inform Lin Ling about this? Wu Jiang then looked at Chen Ting and asked. Chen Ting frowned and finally shook her head. Let's wait. It's not good to disturb Lin Ling because of Tianao and the rest. After all, the God Slayer Alliance has 30,000 people now. Good. I'll immediately gather my men and go outside to help Tianao and the rest. Go. Remember, Don't let the news get out. Yes. Lin Ling naturally did not know about this. He was still crazily harvesting in this area. This was because the number of golden fleece flowers in this area had exceeded his imagination. There were more than 20 million of them. This was a huge sum of money. However, as time passed, the golden fleece flowers in this area were finally harvested by Lin Ling. Lin Ling did not stop and continued to head to a new area. Another 10 million. Next, 30 million. Finally, Lin Ling arrived at the place with the greatest harvest. It was probably the place with the most golden fleece flowers in the entire ancient dragon wasteland. This place was also called a forbidden area. This was because this was the Dead Sea. The Black Sea seemed to be motionless and gave off a heart-palpitating aura. Because of this, there was basically no one in the vicinity. Lin Ling stood at the edge of the Dead Sea and frowned as he looked into the distance. The border of the ancient dragon wasteland? If Lin Ling said that he was the most familiar with the ancient dragon wasteland, no one would dare to say that he was number 2. This was because Lin Ling had already explored the entire ancient dragon wasteland. Is the dragon tribe over there? While Lin Ling was harvesting, he was also searching for the dragon tribe. As of now, this was the only place that Lin Ling had not explored. Rumble. At this moment, the motionless Dead Sea in front of him suddenly roiled. Then, a huge black dragon swam out, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Its ferocious aura was monstrous. However, upon closer inspection, this was not a black dragon. It was a huge vine plant. The plants in this Dead Sea were obviously even more terrifying. Calamity-destroying Sun Bow. Bang! Seeing this, Lin Ling immediately roared and the calamity-destroying Sun Bow appeared in his hand. He shot it out fiercely. At this moment, although Lin Ling's strength had greatly increased, compared to the others, his improvement was actually the slowest. This was because he had not bought anything on a large scale. If he did, his strength would increase by more than 10 times. After the black and white arrow was shot, Lin Ling lightly stomped his feet on the ground. Almost at the same time, little Kunlun on his left arm swam into the ground and dived into the Dead Sea. Rumble! An even more terrifying black vine suddenly exploded and occupied the entire Dead Sea in front of him. Then, it wrapped around the black dragon-like vine. Next, the black and white arrow finally reached its target and pierced through the main vine. Bang bang bang! That vine was instantly shot to death. Of course, this was mostly with the help of little Kunlun. Little Kunlun wrapped around the black dragon-like vine, making it unable to resist at all. In the end, it was killed by the arrow. Whoosh! Chapter 39:11. Trial Taker. The Dead Sea's trees were even more powerful, and there were more of them. After all, no one had ever entered this place before. Clang clang clang. Although Lin Ling's strength did not increase, he had many treasures in his hands. Relying on his defense, he was not afraid of being devoured by the trees. A huge flower bud suddenly rushed out from the sea. Then the petals closed, and like a huge mouth, it swallowed Lin Ling. Bang bang bang. Soon, the flower bud exploded as if it was struck by lightning. A young man in blue armor walked out slowly with 2 swords in his hands. He was Lin Ling. Looking at his appearance, he was completely unscathed. Roar! Lin Ling roared into the sky. With the fusion of talents, his strength increased greatly. Slash! Slash! He slashed with the 2 swords in his hands. On the ground, the Dead Sea suddenly rolled, and countless plants were cut down. Then, Lin Ling shot towards the Dead Sea. Sword light flashed, and the Dead Sea was stirred up into a mess. Large amounts of plant debris flew up into the sky. However, there were too many trees in the Dead Sea. They swam along the sea. Looking from the sky, it was black and constantly wriggling. It made one's scalp tingle. Seeing this, Lin Ling floated up and slowly put away the 2 swords. A mysterious translucent talisman suddenly appeared in his left hand. The talisman was carved with mysterious runes, but it emitted a terrifying aura. The aura was so strong that it was the power of the steps of the gods. Moreover, it was even more terrifying than Lin Ling's steps of wisdom. This was the second most powerful divine weapon, the curse of the gods. Its power was similar to Lin Ling's steps of wisdom. It was a seal. Seal. Lin Ling carefully looked at the mysterious runes in his hand. Finally, he gently patted the Dead Sea. Without a sound, the ocean of death instantly became silent. All of the desolate trees became motionless. All of the power was sealed, even the ocean of death was sealed. This part of the world was completely sealed. What a powerful curse. It's much stronger than my steps of wisdom. Lin Ling looked at the Dead Sea below him and gasped. Terrifying. It was truly a terrifying sigil. Who knew which god's masterpiece it was? It was actually able to compress the divine stairs into a curse. In the next moment, Lin Ling's right palm appeared. His soul force fused with his world essence, and even a wisp of Buddha god energy from the heavenly dragon bone entered his palm. His palm became redder and redder. Upon closer inspection, there was actually a Buddha that appeared there, mysterious and profound. Bodhi Enlightenment Divine Palace, Red Bodhi Scripture Heavenly Venerable Shu. 6 paths of 10,000 movement controlling wind and cloud. Lin Ling slammed his palm into the ocean of death, causing the winds and clouds of the 6 paths to move. Upon closer inspection, a fiery red palm slammed down from the sky. Before it landed, the ocean of death had already exploded. Following that, a gigantic Buddha's palm appeared above the ocean. It was actually several thousand miles wide. Boom! Boom! When the crimson palm completely slammed down, all the water in the ocean of death flowed backwards. All the desolate trees below Lin Ling moved, and then everything turned into nothingness. How terrifying! He had killed countless martial gods with a single palm strike. This was indeed a top-notch divine ability of the theology category. The power of God is definitely in the 20% range. Lin Ling also became excited. This was also the first time he had tested the power of this divine ability. And the result had undoubtedly shocked him. From the looks of it, his chances of winning the battle 3 years later had greatly increased. If my heavenly dragon bone talent increases again, coupled with the increase of my soul force, the power would probably be even stronger. Lin Ling grinned. Currently, many of his techniques were very high-level divine abilities and martial arts. Step of Wisdom. Bodhi Testimony Divine Technique. Great Calamity Destroying Sun Bao. In addition, he still had the unactivated Tyrannical Song Sword and the True Inheritance Dark Sword. Kill! Following that, Lin Ling rushed into the ocean. The two-handed sword appeared again and killed all the remaining desolate trees. Little Kunlun was also helping. It transformed into a huge forest and its speed of killing was even faster than Lin Ling's. After a long time, Little Kunlun appeared on Lin Ling's shoulder and shook its vines at Lin Ling, looking extremely happy. Your strength has also greatly increased. Thank you for this period of time. After finishing this business, we should also stop. Lin Ling stroked Little Kunlun and said with a faint smile. The large area of golden fleece flower in the ancient dragon desolate land had been mostly harvested. The remaining area was about 100,000 in size and Lin Ling was no longer interested in it. Therefore, he planned to immediately head to God's store after harvesting the golden fleece flower in the Dead Sea. Because he also knew that the golden fleece flower had a time limit. If all the treasures in God's store were bought, then no matter how many golden fleece flowers he had, it would be useless. For example, the curse of gods from before had been bought by Lin Ling. However, if he was a bit slower, he was afraid that it would have been snatched away by others. It was a competition of whose speed was faster. Hee, you are the third person to come to the empty spirit Dead Sea. Just as Lin Ling was about to harvest, 3 figures suddenly appeared in the sky. Smiling at Lin Ling frowned. Someone? Lin Ling couldn't help but look over and realized that the 3 people were very strong. However, what surprised Lin Ling was that these 3 people were wearing very ordinary clothes, as if they were passers-by. This also gave Lin Ling a sense of familiarity. He seemed to have seen this kind of ordinariness before. The first person to arrive here, he looked at the shore of the Dead Sea for a long time, and finally left. The second person to arrive here, he flew across the Dead Sea's sky, but in the end, he was entangled by the endless barren trees, and he also left in the end. And you, the third person to reach this place, the person who destroyed 70% of the Dead Sea's desolate trees. However, it isn't easy for the desolate trees of the ocean of death to grow. If you kill them like this, aren't you afraid of being punished by God? The 3 of them smiled as they spoke. Their words were filled with arrogance. None of your business. However, Lin Ling also smiled and reprimanded him. What? Hearing this, the 3 people were tongue-tied. This guy actually scolded them? They couldn't help but be stunned because when a normal person saw them, they would definitely be cautious and respectful.
Who would be so rude like this kid?
Are you looking for death? One of them was angry. He narrowed his eyes and looked indifferently at Lin Ling.
Senior brother, don't waste time with him. Teach him a lesson.
The other two obviously couldn't hold back and wanted to attack immediately. They looked slightly older than Lin Ling, but their strength was stronger than Lin Ling's. They were comparable to the 9 states' 10 martial gods. This kind of strength, even in the final world, was an extremely terrifying existence. However, Lin Ling was not afraid at all. A wisp of smoke suddenly appeared in his hand, and then he ignited it and burned it, forming a thick smoke that filled the air. The 3 people were about to attack Lin Ling, but after smelling the smoke, their expressions changed greatly.
Damn! Isn't this the Lord's tobacco?
What's going on?
The 3 people were in disbelief.
Your senior sister, Sister Cuihua, gave it to me. Of course your lord, that old man Kirishin, probably also knows about this.
Chapter 39:12. The Last Stroke.
Previously, he was still wondering where he had seen these people's clothes before. Later on, he remembered.
Wasn't this the Kirishin's side?
Therefore, he immediately guessed that these 3 people were the trial takers.
Speaking of which, the trial takers were really elusive.
The ancient dragon wasteland was in deep water and they were nowhere to be seen. He also did not know what mission the old Kirishin had arranged for them. Kirishin, that old man, you dare to insult the Lord.
Junior brother, don't be rash. This guy has the Lord's tobacco.
He probably knows the Lord. Just him? The 3 people were still looking at Lin Ling foolishly.
That's right, I know your family's Lord. Furthermore, I've fished in your family for 3 months. Your family's Lord also ate my fish for 3 months for free. I haven't settled the score with him yet.
Lin Ling chuckled and waved the tobacco in his hand.
So it's one of us. May I know how to address you? The 3 people rolled their eyes. They were also shrewd people. They knew that Lin Ling must have a good relationship with the Kirishin. Otherwise, with the Kirishin's fierce attitude towards outsiders, how could he give him the tobacco? Therefore, they could not afford to offend such a person.
Lin Ling, Lei Gong's trial taker. Lin Ling did not hide anything.
So you're Lin Ling.
I've long heard of you. The 3 people were stunned for a moment. Then they all burst out laughing. Their strength was obviously much stronger than Lin Ling. That was because they were trial takers who had completed more than 5 missions. As for Lin Ling, he still only had 2 missions. However, Lin Ling's speed of completing missions was very fast. Therefore, they had all heard of Lin Ling. After chatting for a while, the 3 of them became familiar with Lin Ling. After drinking with them, Lin Ling immediately asked about the other side of the ocean of death. However, when they mentioned this, their expressions turned serious. They told Lin Ling that the depths of the Dead Sea was on the other side of the Kaiyuan River, and there were indeed dragons there. However, the dragon clan was no small matter. If a human were to enter, they would definitely die. Lin Ling quickly nodded, but he had Lei Gong's handwritten letter in his hands, so he wasn't afraid. And when they heard that Lin Ling was going to deliver the letter, moreover, it was for Lei Gong, those 3 people didn't try to persuade him anymore. Instead, they looked as if they regretted not having met earlier. They held Lin Ling's arm and said, "If anything happens in the ancient dragon wasteland, burn the smoke, we will immediately come to help you." Obviously, they knew that Lin Ling was important in Lei Gong's heart. Although Lin Ling was still weak at the moment, he could not be underestimated in the future.
Thank you, brothers.
Lin Ling naturally wouldn't reject this favor. Next, the 3 of them had tasks to do, so they quickly bid farewell and left. After they left, Lin Ling also released little Kunlun and began to crazily excavate the sea. The evil ghost jellyfish was like a fish in water in the ocean of death, constantly weaving in and out. This is a real treasure land. Just here alone, there are 10 million golden fleece flowers. Here, 30 million. Giant ghost, we are going to be rich. This is the biggest fortune. Under the continuous excavation, the harvest of the golden fleece flowers also increased steadily. Finally, it reached 120 million. In addition to Lin Ling's harvest, there were a total of 170 million. This made Lin Ling, who who was floating on the ocean of death, completely stunned. In fact, he almost went crazy. In the following trip to God's shop, he was going to crazily loot. After a long time, Lin Ling took a deep look at the ocean of death and returned with a full load. After spending 2 hours, Lin Ling once again arrived at the God Slayer Alliance's location. At this moment, the God Slayer Alliance was clearing the remaining golden fleece flowers on the ground. When the leaders saw Lin Ling return, they were all smiling. During this period, how was the ancient dragon wasteland? Lin Ling was also in a good mood, but he still asked casually. All the 100 alliances have been absorbed and devoured. Among them, one of the 10 overlords, the land of eternal rest, suffered a huge blow. Everyone left the ancient dragon wasteland and was eliminated. The 10 overlords have become the 9 overlords. One of the 10 overlords, the Freedom Sword Alliance and the Northern Dragon Ice Nation Alliance clashed, and both sides suffered great losses. Currently, the strongest are the Heaven Alliance and the Immortal Demon Alliance. Originally, the Immortal Demon Alliance wasn't enough to be ranked second, but I heard that the Immortal Demon Alliance exchanged for a divine fetus body. Chen Ting and the rest spoke one after another. That's a big change. But what about the Immortal Demon Alliance? Lin Ling's eyes suddenly lit up. That was the alliance that Anuer was in. Now it was time to find her. I heard that the divine fetus body exchanged for by the Immortal Demon Alliance is extremely powerful and has the power of dual cultivation. It can greatly increase the strength of both sides. Currently, it has been snatched by the Saintess of the Immortal Temple. Therefore, all the heroes of the major forces want to get close to the Saintess. This is because it is said that if they are lucky, they can obtain the divine fetus body through dual cultivation with the Saintess. Lu Chen and the white-haired man also walked over from afar with smiles on their faces. So powerful. Hearing this, Lin Ling was shocked. Then, the corners of his mouth curled into an evil smile. Dual cultivation? It had been a long time since he had dual cultivated with senior sister Yu. In Lin Ling's heart, Anuer clearly belonged to him. Lin Ling had the confidence to do so, especially now that he had a strong army, rich and powerful. Among the 10 overlords, the Sky Alliance is still number 1 and the Immortal Demon Alliance is number 2. The other overlords have either retreated or are injured. I'm afraid that the ancient dragon desolate land will be divided into 3. Next, Lin Ling lamented. He knew that there must have been many battles in the ancient dragon desolate land. Who cares? Lin Ling, how's your harvest at the Death Sea? I heard that the Sky Alliance has already set their sights on the Death Sea and will be here soon. Moreover, the Sky Alliance has already noticed something. This is because every time they go to a place, their harvest is extremely small. This makes them suspect that someone has beaten them to it. The white-haired man looked at Lin Ling and said, "Ha ha ha, they are too late." Speaking of this, Lin Ling couldn't help but laugh out loud. The pitiful Sky Alliance. The entire ancient dragon desolate land had been plundered by Lin Ling. What was left for them were only leftovers. The harvest at the Death Sea is the biggest in the ancient dragon desolate land. If the Sky Alliance wants to go to the Death Sea, they will only be able to pick up a strand of hair. Lin Ling waved his right hand and a large number of golden fleece flower floated out and landed on the ground. Everyone was shocked. There were too many. Densely packed, the radiance even shot up to the sky and lit up the sky. So far, I've harvested more than 170 million trees. Seeing that Lu Chen and the rest were dumbfounded, Lin Ling said with a smile. Swoosh swoosh. Everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. 170 million, if they took 30%, that would be close to 60 million. Chapter 39:13. Destroy Wind Cloud Tower. Haha, awesome. Lu Chen and the others could no longer hold back their laughter. Lin Ling also gave out all the golden fleece flowers that belonged to them, leaving 120 million for himself. No one was jealous or envious of this. Lin Ling, you must buy one of the 4 great inherited treasures. Lu Chen looked at Lin Ling expectantly. In response, Lin Ling nodded heavily. However, he also looked at Lu Chen and said, "Old brother Lu Chen, I'm afraid I'll have to use your name to buy this treasure. I don't want too many people to know that I bought the inheritance of a god." "All right, I'll go with you then." Lu Chen thought that Lin Ling didn't want to be a thorn in someone's side. As a matter of fact, Lin Ling did not want to reveal too much. If the others knew he had bought the god succession treasure, Martial god Wentian would surely interfere with the destined battle.
Lin Ling, should we continue collecting? At this moment, Chen Ting suddenly spoke softly.
Lin Ling shook his head and said, "There are only tens of thousands of golden fleece flower left. It takes time to collect them, so I won't collect them. Plus, we have to buy the treasures in the shop of God as soon as possible. It would be bad if someone else bought them."
That, Tian Ao and the rest have been captured by Fengyun Tower. Chen Ting finally spoke.
She had always been afraid of disturbing Lin Ling, so she had never mentioned this matter.
When did this happen? Why didn't you say so earlier?
Hearing this, Lin Ling frowned.
I didn't say anything because I didn't want to disturb the leader's collection.
Chen Ting immediately lowered her head and said, looking extremely wronged.
Upon seeing her expression, Lin Ling also held back from scolding her. However, he also turned his gaze toward everyone from the God Slayer Alliance.
Everyone's gazes were burning, and it was as if a storm was brewing. Obviously, for the sake of keeping the peace, they had fled quite a bit during this period of time.
All right, our mission is complete. It's time to vent.
Remember, following me, Lin Ling, is not to be a tortoise.
You can endure for a while, but it's absolutely impossible for you to endure for a lifetime. Let's go to Fengyun Pavilion, Lin Ling said as he looked into the distance. Hearing those words, everyone's spirits were shaken. Lin Ling, what are you trying to do?
Lu Chen asked with a frown.
Destroy them.
Lin Ling had already taken large strides forward as he enunciated each word clearly.
Hearing this, everyone gasped.
Although they had already guessed it, they didn't expect that Lin Ling was really going to destroy it. One had to know that with this destruction, the God Slayer Alliance would definitely surface and face the various overlords.
As for the other overlords, it wasn't a big deal.
The main reason was still the Sky Alliance because it was formed from the combination of the Sky Alliance and the Elite Alliance.
Moreover, it even had over 3 million experts. Once targeted by them, the God Slayer Alliance would definitely be in danger. However, as the crowd watched Lin Ling stride forward, smiles appeared on their faces. Since their leader had agreed, what else did they have to worry about?
Destroy them!
Everyone shouted loudly.
Among them, there were many martial god realm experts. Their voices were mighty.
This also stunned Lu Chen and the other expert.
Then, they revealed excited smiles because they realized that even the 9 prefectures' 10 evils were shouting loudly. That little guy unified so many old monsters, but he didn't feel any pressure at all.
Even the 2 of us have become his subordinates. Lu Chen and the other expert looked at each other and smiled bitterly.
However, the suppressed anger in their hearts erupted like a volcano at this moment.
Fengyun Pavilion, you've provoked someone you shouldn't have. The majestic crowd rushed toward the direction of Fengyun Tower. At present, the God Slayer Alliance's members had completely expanded from 30,000 to 60,000 elites. This time, the God Slayer Alliance didn't hide their strength anymore. However, there were also many people in Fengyun Pavilion. Therefore, before the God Slayer Alliance got close, they were immediately discovered. Which alliance do you belong to?
This is already Fengyun Pavilion's territory.
Someone looked at the sky and frowned. His voice was like thunder. There were many experts from Fengyun Pavilion nearby. At this moment, they were killing barren trees and drinking wine. When they saw the mighty crowd in the distance, they were first stunned. Then they laughed disdainfully and said, "Those people are really a bunch of idiots. They know that this is our territory, but they still came here." However, as soon as they finished speaking, a terrifying gust of wind blew over.
Countless rays of light illuminated the area.
Upon closer inspection, it was a huge effect caused by tens of thousands of people attacking at the same time.
What?
The experts from Fengyun Pavilion all opened their mouths wide and even began to tremble. What was going on? After that group of people arrived, they attacked them without saying anything? Moreover, it seemed like they were trying to kill them. Wasn't this completely provoking Fengyun Pavilion? Are you courting death?
We are from Fengyun Pavilion.
This time, there were more than 1,000 people led by a junior leader. At this moment, they were all panicking. Unfortunately, what answered them was countless powerful attacks. Rumble! The entire ground exploded and thousands of people were sent flying. Some were dead and some were injured. Those who were still alive all sat on the ground, their faces filled with shock.
You are all crazy. The junior leader was still alive and he was undoubtedly furious. Until now, he still did not know why the other party had attacked them. He also did not know where they came from. Rumble. However, what welcomed them was a huge black and white arrow that flew along the ground. Even a martial god would not dare to take such a powerful attack head-on. The junior leader was not weak. He was a half-step to martial god, but he did not dare to take it head-on. Oh my god! He shouted. He had just run 1,000 miles away when he was killed by the arrow. This. The remaining people were all scared out of their wits. They knelt down and kowtowed continuously. As for the group of experts in the distance, they had also arrived. The leader was a young man in a blue robe. He carried a huge sword on his back and his long hair fluttered in the wind. However, his face was filled with anger. Where is Xianxia? He was Lin Ling. Those who knelt down were confused. Xianxia? What the hell is that? How dare you? What alliance are you from? Do you know the consequences of challenging us in public? However, there were also people who thought of their own origins and immediately shouted angrily. Consequences? We would like to know the consequences. Let me tell you, we are from the God Slayer Alliance. The ninth God's Eye, who was standing beside Lin Ling, said coldly. God Slayer Alliance? Didn't this alliance run away? Why did you come back? Are you rebelling? Kneel down and admit your mistake. If you anger Fengyun Tower, all of you will die. That person was stunned for a moment and became even more furious. Of course, he had heard of the God Slayer Alliance. It was a rapidly rising alliance. However, the God Slayer Alliance was only arrogant in the 100 alliances. When faced with the 10 overlords, the God Slayer Alliance was like a tortoise. Moreover, although there were rumors that the God Slayer Alliance had formed an alliance with the Creation Alliance, it was still a rumor. Chapter 39:14. I am the great leader of the God Slayer Alliance. After all, Fengyun Tower was one of the 10 overlords. Apologize. Lin Ling smiled. His smile was extremely cold. Previously, he already knew that Xianxia and the others had been missing for quite some time. That was why Lin Ling was so furious. Obviously, Fengyun Tower wanted to know what kind of alliance Xianxia and the others were in. However, after so long, Fengyun Tower did not come looking for them. This meant that Xianxia and the others did not say anything at all. During this process, Lin Ling could guess that Xianxia and the rest must have suffered inhumane torture. A bunch of trash. Destroy them all. Lin Ling's rage soared to the heavens as he waved his hand. Rumble. The experts behind him attacked one after another, bombarding those scum until nothing was left. To Fengyun Tower. Lin Ling immediately moved forward again. In the distance, many people who were harvesting the golden fleece flower were in disbelief when they saw this. The God Slayer Alliance was provoking Fengyun Tower? Who didn't know how powerful Fengyun Tower was? In the past, it was the overlord with the most people in the ancient dragon wasteland. They immediately felt that the ancient dragon desolate land was going to be cleansed again. They just didn't know which overlord would be left behind this time. Lin Ling didn't know where Fengyun Tower's big boss was. However, he guessed that Fengyun Tower should be like the God Slayer Alliance, occupying a huge area. Then with the main boss outside, all the big bosses were in the center. Therefore, if they followed the path ahead, they would definitely be able to find the great leader of Wind Cloud Tower. And that was indeed the case. Along the way, they encountered even more people from Wind Cloud Tower. Who allowed you to enter this area? Who are you? The experts of Fengyun Tower were all stunned because this was too sudden. Of course, what made them feel surprised was yet to come. Destroy it! Lin Ling couldn't be bothered to waste any more words. He directly ordered his subordinates to attack, and that group of people was eradicated again. God Slayer Alliance. Finally, a leader appeared, and his strength was at the martial god realm. He arrived with thousands of people and glared angrily at Lin Ling. His subordinates were all well-equipped and they were all half-step to martial god realm experts. Which one of you is the leader? Get the hell out here. I want to see what kind of person this leader is. We didn't destroy the God Slayer Alliance, but you're actually trying to bully us? The leader roared furiously. His aura was like a violent storm. Extremely terrifying. Our leader is not someone you can meet just because you want to. However, as soon as he finished speaking, a figure leaped over from the front, and a giant palm slammed towards him. Rumble! The strength of this slap was incomparably terrifying. It actually directly knocked the leader to the ground, and he fell flat on his face. And the thousands of people below him were all stunned at this moment. Their leader couldn't even block a single attack from someone else? Rebel! Rebel! Your God-Slayer alliance is courting death. You're pushing yourselves into the fire. The leader had a few teeth knocked out. At this moment, he crawled to his feet. His eyes were red as he cursed angrily. This was because he had been beaten to the point of losing his temper. You think you're worthy? However, this time Lin Ling spoke. He activated the Step of Wisdom, and a crimson light burst out from his right hand. Then, he looked at the leader and slammed his palm down. Late-stage martial ancestor realm? When the leader sensed Lin Ling's attack, he instantly laughed disdainfully. However, as soon as he laughed, the Step of Wisdom sealed his strength. Then, with a single slap, he was smashed into a meat patty. Even the divine armor on his body was shattered. In the face of 20% of the divine power, the defensive divine armor of the ancestral power was simply not enough. A first-stage martial god expert had fallen here. He couldn't even withstand a single blow. This scared the thousands of people so much that they all knelt down with pale faces. It should be known that they were no longer the same as when they had just arrived. Every one of them had greatly increased their strength, martial skills, and divine armor. Not to mention their leader. However, even such a leader had been smashed into a meat patty with a single slap? They were convinced. They were all convinced. Join the God-Slayer alliance, and you can still live. Seeing the thousands of people kneeling on the ground, Lu Chen immediately said coldly. This was also the style of the ancient dragon wasteland. The weak would be devoured, and the strong alliance would become stronger. Join, we will join. All of them kowtowed. Let me ask you one question. Where is Xianxia of the God-Slayer alliance? Lu Chen asked again. My lord, we really don't know who Xianxia is. During this period, there have been many people joining Fengyun Tower. How can we remember so many people? My lord, Fengyun Tower has a leader who is extremely powerful. He has a photographic memory and can remember people he has met 10,000 years ago. He must know. Those people shouted loudly. Lead the way. Lin Ling quietly listened to them. He knew that finding Xianxia and the others was the priority now. Moreover, Lin Ling had been collecting golden fleeced flowers for a long time. Therefore, the God-Slayer alliance had been waiting patiently. However, this time, the God-Slayer alliance no longer needed to collect them. Therefore, let's see who is still unconvinced. Unconvinced. Beat them until they are convinced. Demon on demon? Let's devour Fengyun Tower now. What? The God-Slayer alliance is here? While Lin Ling and the others were rushing toward Fengyun Tower, most of the leaders of Fengyun Tower also received the news. Without a doubt, they were all dumbfounded. When did the God-Slayer alliance become so bold? Ever since the ancient dragon wasteland was completely reshuffled, the God-Slayer alliance had disappeared without a trace. Haha, good timing. Somewhere in this area, one of the leaders sneered. I heard that the God-Slayer alliance also has quite a number of golden fleeced flowers. Since they took the initiative to send themselves to us, they are taking advantage of us. Obviously, he still thought that his alliance was the Overlord and the God-Slayer alliance was just 100 alliances. Guys, prepare to meet the enemy. After that, he issued an order and called for his subordinates to come. One had to admit that Fengyun Tower was indeed huge. A leader like him already had 10,000 experts under his command. Of course, when he saw more people coming from afar, his previous excitement disappeared completely. This was because the God-Slayer alliance had more people than him and their aura was much stronger. He even saw the 9 prefectures' 10 evils, who were the founding members of the alliance. The reason why he was so clear was that he was the leader who practiced the 9 phaseless technique. He would never forget the people he had seen and heard of. And he had seen Lu Chen and the others before, so he naturally recognized them. This made him completely dumbfounded. However, Lin Ling did not have the time to care about this group of people who were in a daze. He looked coldly at this group of experts and shouted angrily, Where is Xianxia? Xianxia. The leader recalled Lin Ling's words and immediately remembered. Wasn't that the person he had captured not long ago?
He is with the big leader.
He hurriedly shouted and looked at Lin Ling in disbelief. He asked, "May I know who you are?" At this moment, his heart was filled with suspicion and curiosity. From the position of the advisor, the blue-robed young man seemed to have a high status. However, he had never heard of such a young man.
He was not as famous as Lu Chen, the Nine Lanterns fish. Chapter 39:15. Wind Cloud Tower had arrived. Boom! The leader's heart exploded when he heard this, and the people behind him were shocked as well. This was because they all knew that the God Slayer Alliance had a leader behind the scenes. However, they had never imagined that it would actually be this young man before them. This was too unbelievable. Because they thought that Lu Chen was the leader of the Nine Lanterns fish, and they even guessed that the expert from the Serpent Clan was the leader. However, they never expected that the leader was actually that young man. "It's you, I've seen you before, one of the newbies 3 months ago." The leader had cultivated the 9 formless great technique, so he immediately thought of Lin Ling. At that time, he used his status as a senior to recruit the group of newcomers, and Lin Ling was among them. However, he had never imagined that the newcomer from back then had already become a newcomer. Moreover, he was the leader of one of the 10 overlords. The great leader has arrived. At this moment, a large number of experts arrived from afar. Fengyun Tower, the entire alliance had been mobilized. All of them were half-step martial god realm experts. Moreover, they possessed a large number of treasures. Moreover, there were all kinds of people. There were young people and also 10,000-year-old monsters. The total number of people was actually more than 80,000. After they arrived, they immediately looked at the God Slayer Alliance with solemn expressions. They obviously hadn't expected the God Slayer Alliance to be so powerful. Especially since the powerhouses of the Alliance were also present, they did not dare to act rashly. "Big leader is here," many people from the Wind Cloud Pavilion exclaimed in a low voice. Amidst the 80,000 participants, a handsome young man slowly walked out. This man was extremely handsome, but his handsomeness was different from the others. He had a kind of masculine beauty, wielding a long halberd in his hand and clad in white armor. Behind his back, there were 3 silk banners. He resembled a divine general. And his name was Xianxia. Among the 36 academies, the newcomer king was ranked 3rd. However, his current strength had long surpassed many experts of the older generation, and he was ranked in the top 200 of the divine list. This was the result of him growing up in the Dragon Ancient Wasteland. Currently, not many people knew of his strength. Who is the leader of the God Slayer Alliance? However, before Yang Xiaolong could say anything, someone beside him spoke up. This person's long hair fluttered in the wind and he exuded a domineering aura. He was the 5th-ranked newcomer king, Lone Star Ba. His strength had already entered the top 300 on the heavenly stairway. This was also the result of cultivating bitterly in the ancient dragon wasteland. I didn't expect the God Slayer Alliance to have so many experts. I really underestimated you. However, you are looking for someone called Xianxia, right? That Lone Star Tyrant was the leader who had captured Xianxia and the others. He waved his hand. "Bring them up." Immediately, someone brought Xianxia and the others out. They were chained and their faces were dispirited. Moreover, both of their legs were broken. When they saw Lin Ling and the others, their dispirited eyes instantly lit up. The God Slayer Alliance had arrived? They were all in disbelief. Looking at the miserable state of Xianxia and the others, the people of God Slayer Alliance were enraged. "Haha, these guys are really stubborn. Even if they die, they won't tell us where they came from. If you guys hadn't come knocking on our door, I'm afraid we still wouldn't know that they're from the God Slayer Alliance." Lone Star Ba said calmly as he swept his gaze over everyone in the God Slayer Alliance. He knew that it wasn't a good idea to start a war with this alliance because both sides would suffer great losses. Everything that happened was a misunderstanding. Allow me to apologize. Our 2 hegemons will mind their own business and mind their own business. Then, Lone Star Ba said word by word. After he finished speaking, he turned around and walked back to the experts of Fengyun Tower. "Wait." However, at this moment, a cold voice suddenly rang out. Everyone looked over and saw that the one who spoke was Lin Ling. At this moment, Lin Ling looked at Xianxia and the others with anger in his eyes.
Tian Ao and the others were captured for no reason and even had their legs broken. Now, they wanted to leave just because of an apology? What? Do you really want to start a war with us? Lone Star Boss suddenly stopped and sneered. He looked at Lin Ling and said, "Let me tell you, if we really start a war, both sides will suffer great losses and the other hegemons will benefit." What he said was indeed the truth. Although the God Slayer Alliance wasn't afraid of Fengyun Tower, the God Slayer Alliance wouldn't be safe if they eliminated Fengyun Tower. However, Lin Ling didn't care about him at all. He said calmly, "As long as you take one hit from me, I'll let you leave." What? Lone Star Baa's eyes suddenly narrowed and he couldn't help but laugh.
Take one hit from you? Do you know who I am? You.
His laughter caused the people under him to laugh as well. Lone Star Baa was now ranked in the top 300 on the stairway to heaven. He was more powerful than many of the older generation experts. That brat actually said that the other party could take one hit from him? After Lone Star Baa laughed, he said calmly, "Who do you think you are? What right do you have to speak?"
He's the leader of the God Slayer Alliance. What do you think?
At this moment, before Lin Ling could speak, Lu Chen said calmly, "Leader?" Lone Star Baa and the others obviously didn't expect that the blue-robed young man to be their leader.
Even the leader of Fengyun Tower frowned.
He was very surprised by this matter. The God Slayer Alliance was considered to have countless experts.
Otherwise, they wouldn't be afraid.
But now, the God Slayer Alliance had chosen an ordinary-looking young man to be their leader. After Lone Star Baa recovered from his shock, he finally looked at Lin Ling. "All right, since you have said so, I'll try taking one hit from you. However, I have to remind you that if you get injured, don't blame me." After he finished speaking, he exploded with an imposing aura. Half-step martial god realm. A 9th grade ultimate desolate body. His ancestral power had reached the realm of 100%. As expected of the 5th rookie king. His strength was indeed terrifying.
Furthermore, after he sneered, he didn't wait for Lin Ling to make a move. He took the initiative to pounce at Lin Ling. His palm appeared behind him as light condensed. Countless rays of light surged towards Lone Star Baa from the sky. On his palm, the light became more and more dazzling. In the end, it turned into a light sphere with a radius of more than 10 meters. Within the light sphere, energy surged.
Great Moon Heavenly Yuan Wave. It could stimulate one's ancestral power to the peak and display the absolute might of one's talent. That was because it was absorbing the power of the moon in the universe. When the huge light sphere appeared, countless experts found it difficult to breathe. Then, they released their techniques to block the incoming energy. That was because the huge light sphere kept releasing fist-sized light darts. Ordinary half-step martial gods couldn't block them at all. As for those at the peak of the martial ancestor realm, they would be directly penetrated and die. With Lone Star Baa's strength, it wasn't difficult for him to fight against an ordinary martial god realm old monster.
Can't block it?
Lone Star Baa's long hair fluttered as he revealed a disdainful smile. His cold eyes looked forward.